Chapter 1942. Propose a marriage alliance. Pei Donglai frowned. He was from the great imperial palace, so he knew perfectly well who was in the imperial ranking list and so on. When Yin said that, he immediately thought of one person. Lin Feng. A year before, Lin Feng had just become a medium-level emperor, and he had fought against Ji Chong on the day of his champion ceremony. Unfortunately, they hadn't finished the battle. This young man was Lin Feng. Yin looked at Pei Dongqing and smiled. Pei Dongqing, so you're saying people from ancient clans are more talented than other people. So your uncle wasn't as strong as him back then at the same cultivation level. Does it mean the Pei clan is too weak? Or does it mean your uncle is too weak? Little you, that's enough, shouted Yin Rui furiously. Pei Donglai was an extraordinary person from the great imperial palace and the Pei clan, and they had just given him a turtle heart. Yin was disgracing him. Pei Dongqing was frozen. Yin was humiliating him. Yin looked over at Lin Wuxiang, her beautiful eyes twinkling. Many people understood that Lin Wuxiang had come with his brother because he had hidden thoughts. Princess Yin is not wrong, but at the same time, a cultivation level is subjective. It isn't everything. And we belong to two different worlds, different generations, different contexts. No need to compare us, said Pei Donglai indifferently. Everybody looked amused. Anyway, congratulations. You're lucky you were born many years before him, laughed Yin. Everybody understood she was trying to get closer to Lin Feng and his brother. Yin was unhappy because Pei Dongqing had offered a turtle heart to her grandfather. She knew what he wanted. She was doing her best to reject him. Princess Yin, you're wrong, intervened Ji Jiang slowly. Back then, on the day of Ji Chang's champion ceremony, Lin Feng and Ji Chang fought. Ji Chang didn't use his full strength because he despises Lin Feng. So Lin Feng was lucky. Then, when Ji Chang really wanted to battle and use his full strength, the university made him stop. Otherwise, Lin Feng wouldn't have been able to compete with Ji Chang. You're from the Ji clan. You're on his side, of course, rebutted Yin dismissively. I'm just stating facts. Back then, Pei Donglai was the third cultivator on the imperial ranking list. You know perfectly well who the second and first were. They were incredible. You know that you're wrong, continued Ji Jiang. Some members of the Yuan clan laughed. Pei Donglai has always been amazing. Comparing him with Lin Feng is a humiliation for him. Many people understood that Lin Feng had offended many people. Everybody knew there were tensions between the Ji clan and Lin Feng. He had offended Ji Chang, but he had also offended Ji Weo many times, and Yuan Jing was in a relationship with him. So the Yuan clan supported the Ji clan as well. Nobody seemed to support Lin Feng. What kind of nonsense is that? You're saying that the new generation of cultivators, who is on the imperial ranking list, isn't as strong as the previous one? So you're saying that Ing Cheng Ji Chang, the Buddhist warrior, Xia Yu, and Yin Gu Tian aren't as talented as the previous generation of cultivators who was on the imperial ranking list? Yin Yu retorted scathingly. Those people were ridiculous, their arguments groundless. They were ready to say anything to discredit Lin Feng. Yin Yu, no need to reply to those people's nonsense, said Lin Feng calmly. Those people suddenly looked even more furious. Lin Feng looked at Yin Rui. Master, those people are much stronger than me. I have a few good things, but they're probably not good enough for you. I'd like to offer a lotus to Yin Yu. It is made of Dao intent. A blue Uptala lotus appeared in Lin Feng's hand. It contained a mysterious Dao intent, and slowly flew towards Yin Yu. I love this blue Uptala lotus, said Yin Rui taking it. Yin Rui smiled and nodded. It's a precious treasure for Yin Yu. Thank you very much. Master, Pei Donglai came here for another reason, said Pei Donglai at that moment. He initially didn't intend to act this quickly, but he had no choice anymore. There is no harm in saying what one thinks, Donglai, said Yin Rui politely. Princess Yin Yu is now 18 years old. Many men want to get married to her. My nephew Dongqing is in love with Princess Yin Yu. We came to congratulate you for your birthday, and also to propose a marriage alliance between our two clans. If you accept, the Pei clan and the great imperial palace will be extremely happy, said Pei Donglai, smiling cheerfully. Lin Wuxiang looked at Lin Feng and swore. Bro! He had come here to get to know the Yin clan, He hadn't thought the Pei clan would propose a marriage alliance. No, shouted Inu hastily. Little you, spoke up another strong cultivator of the Yin clan. It was her father. He didn't want her to say anything insensitive. Shut up now. Let your grandpa talk. Inu looked dispirited. She looked at Lin Wuxiang in despair. Even though Yin Rui had guessed that Pei Donglai had come for that reason, he looked solemn and respectful. The Pei clan and the Yin clan were ancient clans. There were invisible connections between such clans. It was all about the palace of power. The relations between the different clans also influenced the whole city. The Pei clan was proposing a marriage alliance. That way they would never be enemies. Master, said Lin Feng at that moment. Yin Rui turned around and looked at Lin Feng. My brother Lin Wuxiang and Yin, you are already going out. I'd like to propose a marriage alliance, said Lin Feng to Yin Rui calmly. Ridiculous. A member of the Ji clan didn't even give Yin Rui time to reply and laughed coldly. Your brother Lin Wuxiang wants to get married with Yin. Did I hear what you said properly? Who are you? What is your social status? Does Lin Wuxiang deserve someone like Yin? Lin Feng turned around. His eyes were filled with death energies. He looked at the member of the Ji clan. Death intent emerged from his eyes and pierced through that person's pupils. His face suddenly turned gray. Bastard! Shouted Ji Jiang and the others furiously. They all started moving towards Lin Feng and released qi towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng's robe started fluttering in the wind. I just glanced at you. Why act that aggressively? Is that the social status you're talking about? Being too weak to withstand a gust of wind? Said Lin Feng, recalling his death intent. He looked calm and aloof, in contrast to the furious Ji clan members. Master Yin Rui, if you give your consent for Pei Dongqing and Yin Yu's union, the Pei clan will use their full strength to raise Pei Dongqing and Princess Yin Yu. The great imperial palace will also do their best, said Pei Donglai. Yin Rui's eyes were twinkling, but he looked expressionless. I came from very, very far away. I have just one brother. Whenever I obtain ancient scriptures, skills, techniques, and other resources, I give them to my brother, and I will also give them to his wife when he has one. You dare compare your resources with the Pei clans? Said Pei Dongqing to Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at him in a disdainful way and countered. Can you compare the resources of the Pei clan with the resources of Champion University? Pei Dongqing looked stunned and said, The Pei clan is my clan. You're just a student at Champion University. It's not yours. You're just a descendant of the Pei clan. You're not the leader. My social status within Champion University will be higher than your social status in the Pei clan, sooner or later. And regarding resources, I have the Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures. Does the Pei clan have them? Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures? Pei Dongqing was astonished. Some other people had heard about the Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures. Lin Feng had already studied them, and now Lin Feng was proposing a marriage alliance, which meant that he definitely had them. When Lin Feng saw Pei Dongqing remaining silent, he smiled coldly and took out a tree. Suddenly, the strength of the 10,000 things of creation appeared around him, and there was a strong attraction between Lin Feng and that strength. It was an incredible sight, making people shiver with desire. That's, Yin Rui was astonished. Does the Pei clan have a heavenly grace ancient tree? Asked Lin Feng again. The crowd was astonished and swallowed. Lin Feng surprisingly had a heavenly grace ancient tree of Godlywood Valley. Lin Feng perfectly understood that he couldn't rely on his reputation or social status to impress the Yin clan. He was talented, but he was just a strong yet random cultivator. I have many other things, but I don't need to show you everything I have. I have books, skills, techniques, items, weapons. I probably have as many good resources as the Pei clan. I even have marks of the path, more than enough, said Lin Feng indifferently. He was talking to Pei Dongqing, but actually he just wanted the Yin clan to hear him. Chapter 1943. Killing this guy comes from a small world? Thought the crowd. The Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures, the Heavenly Grace Godlywood, Marks of the Path, many great scriptures. Lin Feng sounded arrogant, but he wasn't lying. He had already shown 2 of those things to the crowd. Pei Dongqing was from the Pei clan, but he hadn't taken anything out yet. No wonder that he was that strong. He had many treasures, talent, and experience. So show us, what do you have? Asked Lin Feng to Pei Dongqing indifferently. Pei Dongqing's face stiffened. What did he have? Apart from the fact that he belonged to a powerful clan, what did he have? Did he have items as valuable as Lin Feng's items? Lin Feng slowly turned around and looked at Yin Rui. Master, Pei Dongqing has a good background, but that's all. What else does he have? Even if you belong to a powerful clan, you must make efforts. And also, considering his attitude and personality, I don't think he'll go very far on the path of cultivation. Wu Shang is my only biological brother. Everything I have, I will give it to him. Yin Rui looked at Lin Feng meaningfully. Lin Feng was telling him that Pei Dongqing's promises were empty. Lin Feng could at least prove what he was saying. However, an alliance between the Yin clan and the Pei clan wasn't only about Yin, it was about two powerful ancient clans. There was a lot at stake. It was a difficult choice for the Yin clan. At the beginning, everybody thought Pei Dongqing was a better choice than Lin Feng because he belonged to a powerful clan. But now things were different. Even the Yin clan was hesitating. Lin Feng had done a great job. Hee hee. Yin Rui laughed indifferently and said to the crowd, Yin Yu is young. Why hurry? She can also talk to her father. We need time to think. Everybody understood. Yin Rui couldn't decide within seconds. Since it's that way, I'll wait for the good news. The Pei clan is eager to have an alliance with the Yin clan, said Pei Donglai indifferently. At his cultivation level, what other people said didn't affect him that much anymore. He was self-confident, and he was convinced the Yin clan would give him face. Let's stop talking about that for now. We're here for my birthday party. There are so many geniuses today. Please exchange views on cultivation. You can learn from one another, smiled Yin Rui. Everybody nodded and started chatting among themselves. Lin Feng looked at the members of the Yin clan. His eyes were twinkling. He didn't feel good about his chances. He was alone and couldn't do much against two ancient clans. He was just talented, but that wasn't enough. Pei Donglai was also a genius, and on top of that he had already become a great emperor. At that moment, someone landed in front of Lin Feng. It was Xiaoyu. He smiled at Lin Feng and said, Last time, when I saw you, I didn't think anything, but then you fought against Ji Chong, and I was very surprised. I hope we can battle at some point. Xiaoyu's eyes twinkled evilly with decay strength. However, his expression didn't affect Lin Feng, who remained calm. It will soon be the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list. You'll have the opportunity, Xiaoyu, spoke up the Buddhist warrior indifferently at that moment. His eyes were sharp and extremely determined. He was the fourth cultivator on the Imperial ranking list. Haha, the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list will be amazing, said Yin Gutian, laughing happily. They raised their glasses and toasted. Dazzling silver lights kept twinkling in Yin Gutian's eyes. He was the seventh cultivator of the Imperial ranking list. At that moment, some qi rose up in the air. Pei Donglai came over, surrounded by a purple qi. The Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list will be great. I will volunteer for battle. I will show everyone how incredible the Great Imperial Palace is, said Pei Donglai, glancing at the crowd and Lin Feng meaningfully. The Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list was an event organized by the Great Imperial Palace, who were in charge of the Imperial ranking list. They had a great deal of power and influence. Lin Feng looked at those extraordinary people. Many things would change after that event. It was difficult to remain calm and aloof when thinking about it. Even though he was quite strong, there were many people who were stronger than him in the Holy City. People who were on the Imperial ranking list were astonishing, especially those at the top of the list who all understood Dao strength. Ying Cheng, Ji Chong, and so on were all terrifyingly strong. Lin Feng and Lin Wushang were quickly bored, so they left. Bro, do you think the Yin clan will accept Pei Dongqing and Yin Yu's union? Asked Lin Wushang to Lin Feng. Lin Feng remained silent for a few seconds and said, Wushang, there is a big chance they will because the Pei clan and the Yin clan are both ancient clans. They care more about power and influence than anything else. Yin Yu isn't free to choose her husband. So Lin Wushang's face stiffened. But Lin Feng smiled and said, "Don't worry. If Yin wants to follow you, you can escape with her. You can take her to my world, and nobody will find you. Even if you don't go to my world, you can go to another place in the continent of the 9 clouds. But you need to become stronger. You're an adult now, and you understand that if you're not strong enough, you can't do anything in this world." "I understand," said Wuxiang, nodding. He clenched his fists. If only he had been as strong as Lin Feng, the Ying clan wouldn't have hesitated. Even though Lin Feng had said he would give him everything he had, they weren't the same person. Lin Feng being extremely talented didn't mean that Wuxiang was talented, and the Ying clan didn't know how strong Wuxiang was. At that moment, a strong wind started blowing behind Lin Feng. "Brother Lin Feng, stop." Lin Feng and Lin Wuxiang stopped and turned around. They saw many people following them, people from the Ji clan and the Yuan clan. A strong wind whistled. The group of people quickly surrounded Lin Feng and his brother, and their chi pressed out. Lin Wuxiang had already started suffocating and was instantly covered with cold sweat. "What's this supposed to mean, everybody?" asked Lin Feng, glancing around. All these people were young people from the Ji clan and the Yuan clan. They were extremely strong, high-level emperors. "Brother Lin Feng, you're extremely strong. Everybody knows about that. You can even compete with Ji Chang. We are all very weak in comparison with Ji Chang. We also know that. But we would like to know how strong you really are," said one of them. His voice and chi emitted whistling sounds. Lin Feng had the sensation mountains and oceans were pressing on him. His eyes twinkled. His celestial evolution chessboard appeared, and Lin Feng jumped on it. The deployment spell of the celestial evolution chessboard became dazzling. Lights illuminated the whole crowd. However, Lin Feng rose up in the air, looking at them icily. Death chi started pulsing. "Come," said Lin Feng calmly. His powerful chi became even more terrifying. Someone stretched out his hand, and meteorites started falling from the sky towards Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng waved his hand. There was a rumble, and all the gigantic stones all exploded. Many people charged him at the same time. Lin Feng saw a pair of eyes. They looked evil. Evil vision. The cultivator's eyes looked particularly sinister, like those a demon. At the same time, 2 other people ran towards Lin Feng, and a stone axe fell from the sky, able to easily destroy a mountain. The energies around it blotted out the sky. A cyan dragon appeared and bared its fangs. Lin Feng's robe fluttered in the wind. His death strength was explosive, his gaze terrifying. The eyes of the cultivator, who had evil eyes in front of Lin Feng, suddenly started bleeding, and his face turned gray. He looked like a corpse. "Die!" shouted a strong cultivator explosively. The terrifying axe and the cyan dragon chi fell from the sky towards Lin Feng. Golden lights intertwined around Lin Feng, and under his feet. A pattern appeared. Lin Feng flashed forwards and suddenly disappeared. The axe and the dragon continued falling from the sky as a horrible shriek arose. A death sword appeared and pierced through that person's head, and his body fell down from the sky. Chapter 1944. Demon Puppets. He's dead. Lin Feng's gaze was terrifying. He had killed a cultivator from the Yuan clan, a high-level emperor. "You dared kill a cultivator from the Yuan clan?" shouted someone explosively. Lin Feng turned around and looked at that person mockingly. "You came here to kill me? Don't you think you're ridiculous? Get ready to die." Golden lights flashed, and marks intertwined. Those people were stunned as they watched Lin Feng release cosmic energies to carve an empty space deployment spell. A terrifying wind started blowing. Lin Feng charged someone. Nihility sword. Pitch-black lights emerged from Lin Feng's eyes. His nihility sword pierced through that person's soul, and as the death strength spread throughout his body, the person was slammed backwards violently. He still managed to make some hand seals with his hands. His soul turned into a gigantic cyan dragon, and bestial chi swelled. Lin Feng jumped onto his golden marks and disappeared. He punched out, and a terrifying Devamara Culpa death sword streaked across the sky. A terrifying death wind brushed against the cultivator's body, and the space around him exploded. "What's that?" The cultivator in front of Lin Feng sensed the pressure. His face turned deathly pale as his soul shook violently, and his heart started pounding. Destructive Tao. Lin Feng understood destructive Tao? A terrifying dragon started roaring and flew towards Lin Feng. However, the Death Kulpa sword pierced through the dragon and started corroding the cultivator's life. He couldn't do much else. There weren't only destructive energies, there was also a strange and oppressive strength. It was as if a whole world were pressing down on that cultivator. There were rumbles of air compressing, and his skull crackled. His cyan dragon exploded, and a moment later, so did the cultivator himself. However, at that moment terrifying threads of energies pierced through Lin Feng's head. His soul shook violently, and his silhouette became distorted. Suddenly, illusions appeared in his brain. Ancient kings attacked his soul. He had the sensation he was going to die. Die! Lin Feng was incredibly determined. He used the strength of his godly awareness to protect himself. A palace appeared and protected his soul. His willpower was indestructible. At the same time, he released even more death strength, which turned into sharp blades and attacked the illusion. The kings all exploded and disappeared. It was as if he had destroyed a mirage. More oppressive strength appeared around Lin Feng. Dragon claws slashed towards his head. Suddenly, Lin Feng's third eye flared, and they could hear waves crashing. Black water emerged from his third eye and rolled out towards them. His enemy were aghast. That death black water was terrifying. He had seen it with his own eyes in the past. Lin Feng could easily kill people with it. He retreated as fast as he could, but the black water washed over him, and death chi penetrated into his body. To his astonishment, he didn't die. At that moment, a celestial death curtain appeared and blotted out the sky. It enveloped him. He vanished inside and disappeared. Lin Feng looked at someone who wasn't far from him, the person with evil eyes. He also had a special power. He could attack people's will and soul with his eyes. At that moment, millions of lights dazzled, and unseen waters seemed to be splashing around them. One of the strong cultivators released a golden water fork, containing great imperial strength. Ji Jiang took out a gigantic dragon axe, which looked like a real cyan dragon as it roared furiously. The last cultivator took out a terrifying demon zither, and deadly sound waves spread out in the air. Those three people were really dangerous. They all had great imperial weapons. Lin Feng looked at those three people, his eyes twinkling. He flashed forwards and landed on his celestial evolution chessboard, an illusionary mist appearing around him. The three cultivators were startled as the celestial evolution chessboard disappeared. Lin Feng reappeared on a boat and left. He's leaving. Ji Jiang looked at Lin Feng with murder in his eyes. The three cultivators started chasing Lin Feng at the same time as fast as they could move. Lin Feng was on his boat and moving incredibly fast. He headed towards a mountain range and immediately collided with it, the chosen mountain exploding at the impact. The stone groaned, and a tunnel appeared. The three others followed him inside. When they entered the hole, the walls around them kept exploding. Ji Jiang was furious. As they moved through the corridor, Qi surged towards him powerfully. It was moving even faster than Lin Feng, and made him hesitate. He raised his great imperial weapon, but the air shrieked as the Qi surrounded him. The two others arrived but very quickly. Qi surrounded them just like it had Ji Jiang. A mysterious Qi enveloped them rapidly. They continued moving forwards, but only collided with one another. They didn't have time to react. Suddenly there was no sound anymore. Some weapon Qi still rose up in the air, but nobody knew what was going on inside. 7 days later, Qi was still rising in the hole. Lin Feng was bathing in the demon pond in his small world, his celestial evolution chessboard nearby. The three others were there too, seated on the chessboard, their eyes closed. A black fire was burning their souls, and their faces were pitch black. They looked horrible. At that moment, they were safe and sound, but they didn't dare resist. Lin Feng had stamped their souls with death stamps. He could kill them as he wished. Ah! The three cultivators kept shrieking horribly. Their souls were burning, but they were still alive. It was so painful that they would have preferred dying. They were all terrified. "What do you intend to do to us?" demanded Ji Jiang aggressively. "I won't kill you, but if you do anything fishy you will die," said Lin Feng, his voice making them shudder in dread. They had no doubt that Lin Feng wasn't lying. "You dare do that to us? the Ji clan, and the Yuan clan won't let you off. They will kill you, swore Ji Jiang, sounding as evil as a snake. Ah! Right after saying that, he gave out a horrible shriek. He closed his eyes and stopped talking. The pain was unbearable. When Lin Feng finished stamping their souls properly, he stopped. He used the power of the demon pond to do it. Each of them had 81 demon stamps on their soul, from head to foot. Lin Feng tortured them for 9 days. After so many days in the pond, their eyes turned black in despair. The demon strength kept corroding their bodies. If my soul was strong enough, I could pierce through their souls with my 9 netherworlds demonic song. I wouldn't need to waste so much time, murmured Lin Feng. He stood up and stopped torturing the trio. He wanted to turn them into demon puppets, but it took 81 days. He had been doing it for only 9 days. Ji Jiang and the 2 others were extremely strong, at the top of the Huangqi layer, and only people who understood Dao strength could deal with them. Therefore, killing them would have been a pity. That's why Lin Feng wanted to use them as demon puppets. The ancient demon clan's demon puppet technique was extremely complex, and it was very difficult to use extremely strong cultivators, especially since the technique had to be used on cultivators who were fit. Otherwise, the puppets were deficient. People who turned into demon puppets were the same as before, except that they listened to orders. If they were incredibly strong, they remained extremely strong. People slowly learned about what had happened at the Yin clan. Many people learned that Pei Dongqing had gone to the Yin clan with his brother Pei Donglai to propose a marriage alliance to the Yin clan. The most amusing thing in that story was that Lin Feng, a cultivator of Champion University who had fought against Ji Chang, also proposed a marriage alliance for his younger brother. Many people were excited and couldn't wait to know who the Yin clan would choose. People were excited even in Champion University. Lin Feng was already extremely famous in Champion University. Many people thought that Lin Feng's brother didn't stand a chance though, especially since there were more and more movements between the Yin clan and the Pei clan. Otherwise, the crowd was also excited about another event, the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial Ranking List. The strong cultivators of the Imperial Ranking List were going to rise and fall. Chapter 1945. Insolent Lin Feng headed back to Champion University. He entered his palace and practiced cultivation at the waterfall. He spent 9 days there, the water crashing onto his body but not bothering him. The Pathfinder Day of the Imperial Ranking List was approaching. He needed to study a lot. Today, there were many guests in Lin Feng's palace. Yingyu was there. She had run away from the Yin clan and wanted to see Lin Wuxiang. Yingyu looked sad and dispirited. She looked at Lin Wuxiang and said, "Silly boy, what are you going to do if my clan wants me to get married with Pei Dongqing?" Yingyu burst into tears. Luckily, Champion University had let her come in. She knew that her clan preferred the Pei clan. Lin Feng was strong and talented, but so what? He wasn't from a strong clan. In the Holy City, ancient clans preferred making alliances with one another. "I'll take you away," said Lin Wuxiang, clenching his fists. His nails pierced through the skin of his palms. "But the Yin clan is so powerful, you can't imagine," said Yingyu. She was very happy on the inside when she heard Lin Wuxiang. This silly boy loved her. But a few seconds later, she was depressed and dispirited again. There was no solution. And Champion University was a university, not Lin Feng's clan. It wouldn't get involved in such things. "We'll escape," declared Lin Wuxiang. "If the Yin clan doesn't let you get married to who you choose, then escape," said Xiaoya, completely unruly. "Yes, don't go back, stay here," Lin Wuxiang said to Yingyu, not hiding his anger. Yingyu was overwhelmed. She remained silent for a few seconds, and then smiled and nodded. "All right, I'm not going back for now." The following days, Lin Wuxiang was really happy. Yingyu was always with him. They spent lots of time at the waterfall. Meng Qing was with Lin Feng and watched them. They were a perfect match. Meng Qing smiled resplendently and sighed. She had a premonition. Yingyu didn't think like Wuxiang. Maybe in her eyes, they were spending their last days together. "Silly boy, if you never see me again, you'll have to forget about me and lead the same life as you did before," said Yingyu sadly. When Meng Qing heard that, she smiled. She remembered how hard it had been for her and Lin Feng to be together. Much more difficult than it was for these two. No, we will always be together. How could I live without you? Said Wu Shang, shaking his head. You silly boy, I'm saying if. Said Yin doing a cute face. She gazed into the distance, stretched her arm and said, the landscape is so nice here. If we could stay here forever, that would be great. Life would be like a dream. Unfortunately, my life will never be that peaceful. Water from the waterfall splashed around Lin Feng. He stretched his hand out and grabbed a drop of water, putting it between his fingers. Surprisingly, it didn't drip down, staying there between his two fingers, glittering and translucent, one flower, one world. One sutra, one bodhi, one drop of water. Why couldn't a drop of water contain a world with its own rules? Lin Feng released the drop of water, and it continued falling. However, Lin Feng continued looking pensive. The world of the living was like a dream. World of the living, world of the living, world of the living imprints. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. World of the living imprints, a world contained everything. A world could also contain nothing at all. Thinking too much was useless anyway. Lin Feng slowly stood up and stretched out his hand. Imprint strength appeared in his hand, and began to whistle. There was absolutely no cosmic energy inside. The waterfall even stopped flowing halfway. The atmosphere became empty where the waterfall stopped, really empty. It contained no energy at all. The waterfall just ceased to move. Meng Qing and the others heard the whistling sounds. They turned around and looked at Lin Feng, frowning in surprise. Cultivators could easily attain an explosive strength. Lin Feng could easily destroy mountain ranges, rivers, lakes, and so on. Cultivators had that power using cosmic energies, chi, strength, intent, anything. But they couldn't do it just like that. Without using any kind of strength. Even great emperors couldn't do that. But now Lin Feng had put his hand into the waterfall and made it stop. What kind of strength was that? When Lin Feng saw them, he laughed. After a short time, the waterfall started flowing again, as if nothing had happened. Meng Qing's silhouette flickered up next to him and asked, Lin Feng, have you broken through? I understood a mysterious thing, said Lin Feng, smiling at Meng Qing. He was astonished on the inside though. It felt like that mysterious world of the living imprint could bring him to another world. And only people like him could go to that mysterious territory. Maybe he could create his own world. And his own Tao. Maybe his Tao could surpass the Tao of the blue Uptala lotus. Of course, Lin Feng didn't really understand what was going on. It was too mysterious for now. Meng Qing beamed. She grabbed Lin Feng's hand and looked at the waterfall. Lin Feng, you have to help Wu Shang and Yin stay together. Lin Feng was surprised, but he smiled and said, Of course Wu Shang and Yin are in love with one another. I hope they can stay together. If the Yin clan doesn't accept their union, I'll just make them disappear. Good, said Meng Qing nodding. However, at that moment, terrifying threads of qi emerged. The temperature went down. Lin Feng frowned. Nobody dared attack his people these days in Champion University. Lin Feng, get the hell out here. A voice shouted furiously. Lin Feng was amused. They're looking for me, said Yin, looking terrified suddenly. Lin Feng flew up and left Tiantai's territory. There was a group of people outside, clearly sent on a punitive expedition. What do you want? Asked Lin Feng indifferently, glancing over the crowd. Lin Feng, you're audacious. You dared kidnap Yin, said Pei Dongqing icily. Flames of fury were burning in his eyes. He was in love with Yin. How could those people kidnap his woman and let her live with Wu Shang? What a humiliation. Lin Feng, let the princess come out, said a strong cultivator of the Yin clan. Yin had ran away and come to this place. It was very irritating. Lin Feng glanced at them coldly and said, Princess Yin is free to go wherever she wants. If she comes here, I won't kick her out. Saying I kidnapped her, and telling me to release her, as if she were my prisoner is insolent. Fuck off now. His chi picked up, radiating out at them as they gaped at him. Lin Feng was insane. In the distance, many people rushed over to watch. They were all astonished. What were the strong cultivators of the Yin clan and the Pei clan doing there? I knew that Lin Feng was insane. Ji Jiang disappeared. and some strong cultivators from the Ji clan and the Yuan clan have been killed. You're the one who did it, right? Demanded a strong cultivator from the Pei clan icily. Let me see if you are strong enough to act that insanely. The strong cultivator of the Pei clan darted forwards. A strong wind started brushing against Lin Feng's body as his strength pressed at Lin Feng. Lin Feng also flashed ahead, his robe fluttering about him. His chi was incredible. He stretched out his hand. An ancient imprints appeared to envelop the whole area. Very quickly, the cultivator was surrounded by the imprint strength. He was stunned and shouted furiously, a tornado appearing behind him and howling forwards. But the ancient imprints blotted out the sky and immediately absorbed the wind. The imprints then continued moving towards that cultivator. His face turned deathly pale, and thunder groaned as the ancient imprints drove into him. His muscles, flesh, and soul crackled and exploded, and he died on the spot. The onlookers all swallowed. What a terrifying imprint technique. Lin Feng was really strong, much stronger than a year before. What kind of imprint technique was that? They didn't understand. Lin Feng had just crushed a really strong cultivator like he was nothing. Another strong cultivator had started moving towards Lin Feng. But when he saw that, he was stunned, and stopped and blankly stared at Lin Feng. Lin Feng, you're a bastard. Then, he released an explosive strength which drove down on Lin Feng. He was a great emperor. You're the bastard. A new silhouette appeared. That person's strength was extremely oppressive, and he immediately grabbed that cultivator. The great emperor's face turned deathly pale. Overwhelming strength bombarded him, and he coughed up blood. It's Champion University here, piss off, said that person icily. The strong cultivators of the Ying clan and the Pei clan all pulled long faces. They had managed to infuriate Champion University. They were definitely being insolent. Chapter 1946. Ancestor Shirtion, the great emperor's face stiffened. He looked at the silhouette in the sky. Master, you saw it. Lin Feng is extremely arrogant. He killed the people of my clan. We have to do something. Lin Feng is a student here. You came here. It's your offense. If you attack again, I'll kill you, said the cultivator in the sky icily. The strong cultivators of the Pei clan and the Ying clan realized they couldn't do much now. They couldn't attack Lin Feng within the university. The university had realized Lin Feng was extremely strong back when he had fought against Ji Chang, and they didn't want to lose him. All right, fine, we're leaving, said the strong cultivator of the Ying clan before he shouted, Yin, come out now. Yin was frozen with indecision for a moment inside the palace. She looked at Lin Wuxiang and said, Silly boy, I'm off. Don't go back with them. Stay here. They won't do anything to you, said Lin Wuxiang, grabbing her hand. Silly boy, you underestimate them. Do you think we can escape? Said Yin, smiling and shaking her head. Don't worry, I won't get married with Pei Dongqing. I prefer dying over marrying him. Then, she let go off Lin Wuxiang's hand and ran out. She said to those people, I wanted to come here. It was my own decision. Now I'm going back with you. Let's go. One of them grabbed her hand and pulled her after them as they left. While flying away, Yin turned her head around and smiled at Wuxiang. She said, Silly boy, don't be sad. Little you, shouted Lin Wuxiang. His face had turned deathly pale. He felt so powerless, and bit his lips so hard he almost bled. Lin Feng slapped Lin Wuxiang's shoulders. Lin Wuxiang turned around, his face going red, shouting, Bro. Lin Wuxiang felt so weak. Maybe that at that moment, he understood for the first time what it meant to be really powerless. Nothing will happen to little you, said Lin Feng firmly. For Lin Wuxiang, this was an experience. Lin Feng used to feel powerless all the time in the past, and he was the way he was thanks to his experiences. Lin Wuxiang couldn't grow up in a gentle and docile environment. He had to go through hardships to become stronger. Lin Feng, come with me to the Celestial Mountain, the cultivator in the sky said to him. Lin Feng nodded and followed the illusion towards the Celestial Mountains in the distance. After a short time, Lin Feng arrived in the forbidden area of the university. They crossed a mysterious mist, and Lin Feng saw many celestial mountains around him. Finally, they arrived on one mountain with no palace or castle, Just a strong cultivator seated cross-legged. The strong cultivator slowly opened his eyes. He was the same as the illusion which had appeared in the sky and led Lin Feng here. "Greetings, master," said Lin Feng, bowing before the old man. Even though he looked old, he seemed as strong as a dragon or a tiger. His body kept absorbing qi, and his vitality was incredible. This kind of people just had to shout and could kill entire cities. "Lin Feng, using someone else's memories, I watched your battle against Ji Chang on the day of his champion ceremony. As a medium-level emperor, you already control the Tao of life and death. You are an incredible cultivator and can fight against entire groups of people, which indicates you are very talented too. Among the people of this generation, you are probably the only one who could surpass Ji Chang." The old man smiled. It was an incredible compliment. "Thank you, master. Even though Ji Chang is the champion, I will definitely surpass him," said Lin Feng calmly. The old man's eyes were sharp, and he burst into laughter. "All right, young people have to be ambitious and determined. I'm one of the ancestors of the university, Ancestor Shirtian. Would you like to become my disciple?" When Lin Feng heard him, he remained silent. Ancestor Shirtian continued. "In Champion University, there are 8 ancestors. We all have different powers. I've heard that Zhu Tian missed his chance with you, and Xian Tian, and the others aren't a good match for you. You should become my disciple. It would be the best thing for you." "Who's criticizing me?" said a loud voice at that moment. Ancestor Xian Tian flashed in and arrived in front of Ancestor Shirtian. "Buddy, you're being disrespectful. We said we would wait, and now you're not keeping your promise. You're a liar." "I'm just being an honest." "I'm not a liar," rebutted Ancestor Shirtian loftily. "You think I'm weaker than you? You want to try and fight?" challenged Ancestor Xian Tian furiously. "Let's try then. You haven't fought for dozens of years. Let's see how strong you've become," said Ancestor Shirtian, standing up. Suddenly everything changed. The wind began to whistle, clouds appeared, and a strong wind started blowing as the heavens seemed to press down. It was incredible. "Masters," said Lin Feng, smiling wryly. The 2 ancestors looked at Lin Feng. "Lin Feng, I noticed you a long time ago already. Be my disciple." "I'm not like him. I don't criticize people behind their back," said Ancestor Xian Tian to Lin Feng. "Masters, cultivators have to rely on themselves. Teachers are just guides, and my path is different from yours. I'm really grateful to both of you. If you both agree to give me some tips sometimes, I'd be extremely happy already," said Lin Feng with a smile. The 2 ancestors were surprised. "Lin Feng, this kind of opportunity is really rare. Many people have never seen us." Ancestor Shirtian said to Lin Feng. "I understand," nodded Lin Feng. The 2 ancestors remained silent for a few seconds. Then Ancestor Xian Tian laughed and said, "All right, little boy. We can both guide you. But wanting 2 teachers, hey, you're insatiably greedy." "You're very wise, masters," laughed Lin Feng. The ancestors were actually being nice. "Lin Feng, go back. If you need anything, you can come and find me," said Ancestor Shirtian to Lin Feng. Lin Feng had many thoughts, but he left for now. Lin Feng understood that he had influence in Champion University now. If he became one of the ancestors' disciples, they would do all they could to help him. But if only one person helped him, it wouldn't be beneficial. Everybody was different on the path of cultivation. He understood different sorts of strength and so forth. He couldn't blindly follow one person. He needed to learn from different people and walk on his own path. Lin Feng spent some time in Champion University. Many influential groups in the Holy City started harboring evil intentions against him. The Ji clan, the Yuan clan, the Pei clan, and some people of the Ying clan predominantly. They hated him even more after what had happened with the ancestors. In the Ji clan, the leader of the group and a few people were together. Someone asked, "Do you have any news from Ji Jiang?" "No." Ji Jiang, Ji Zhanyuan, and some other strong cultivators of the Yuan clan chased Lin Feng and never came back. "I contacted the Yuan clan. Some of their people died, but Ji Jiang's talisman, as well as the talismans of some other people, haven't broken. So they're still alive. But they disappeared without leaving a trace. Only Lin Feng knows where they are, I guess." The leader of the group looked furious and snarled, "We have to destroy Lin Feng." On the day of Ji Chang's champion ceremony, Lin Feng had already stood out. Unless someone of the same cultivation level killed Lin Feng, the university would be furious. They couldn't send strong cultivators to kill him. The leader of the Ji clan understood that perfectly. If someone of the same level killed Lin Feng, it would mean that Lin Feng wasn't strong enough. Even if it infuriated Champion University, it wouldn't matter. They wouldn't be able to say much. But if strong cultivators killed Lin Feng, then the situation would be completely different. The Pei clan hates Lin Feng. Contact Pei Donglai. The Great Imperial Palace is in charge of the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial Ranking List. He can find a way to kill Lin Feng, the leader said icily. The others nodded and one of them said, "I'll go and contact the Pei clan. They'll inform Pei Donglai. Lin Feng is arrogant and considers everybody and everything beneath his notice. He must die." Back then, Lin Feng was unknown in Champion University and suddenly, he had become famous because of one battle. He kept getting stronger and stronger and more famous. At that moment, he only focused on two things: what the Ying clan was doing in cultivation. He had to get ready for the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial Ranking List. Chapter 1947. Competing in the Holy City, there was a holy mountain surrounded by a mysterious energy. In the distance, not far from the mountain, there was a flatland, forming the central part of the Holy City. It was extremely vast and occupied by many gigantic buildings. From there, and especially from one gigantic building, people could see the holy mountain in the distance. It was the Great Imperial Palace. The Great Imperial Palace had a long history in the Holy City. Some people said that it had existed for even longer than the 4 universities. It was situated on a dragon vein underneath the Holy City. The energies there seemed like they would never disappear. Many of their people had shaken the whole world. The Great Imperial Palace was in charge of deciding who could be on the Imperial Ranking List. The sun was dazzling as it illuminated the buildings. There were many people looking in the direction of the mountain. Many small silhouettes appeared on the holy mountain and rushed over, gradually appearing in the people's field of vision. They were strong cultivators from the Great Imperial Palace. Some disciples from the Great Imperial Palace. People's eyes were gleaming. There were 9 people in the group, who arrived at the top of a flight of stairs. The leader waved, and a magnificent golden list appeared. On the list there were many names. One of them was Ying Cheng. Imperial Ranking List. Many people were awed when they saw that list. That list was one of the most famous lists of the Holy City. The Imperial Ranking List, the list of the strongest cultivators of the Huangqi layer of the city. They were all powerful and influential individuals. The disciples of the Great Imperial Palace will also be on the Imperial Ranking List someday. Just like those 9 people. Back then, they were on the Imperial Ranking List. Now they've become great emperors, thought the crowd, looking at the 9 disciples. They were all incredible. Feng Shentian, Pei Donglai, Ao Yin Xiao. Those 3 cultivators had shaken the world back in the days. The leader of the group waved again. The Imperial Ranking List floated in the sky and glittered. A strong wind started blowing. At the top of the flight of stairs, in front of the 9 people, a gigantic table appeared. There was a pen atop it. Every 10 years, on the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial Ranking List, the glorious history of the city is rewritten, recited a voice in a solemn and respectful way. The crowd's excitement grew. They all hoped their names would be on the list someday. Even though the list could change any time, the biggest changes were every 10 years during the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial Ranking List. Each time, there were big changes. Everybody remained silent in the crowd, their hearts pounding. At that moment, they could see a boundless ocean of people, all staring at the list. The list contained the most incredible cultivators of the Holy City. Lin Feng was also in the crowd. Ho Qinglin, Lin Wuxiang, Meng Qing, and many other people from Tiantai were with him. "There will be much blood today," whispered Ho Qinglin. Lin Feng appeared quite calm. He looked at the people at the top of the flight of stairs. The people from the Great Imperial Palace. They were all geniuses from the Holy City. They were on the Imperial Ranking List in the past, and now they managed it. At that moment, the leader of the great imperial palace looked at the sun. He smiled and said, "One more hour and we'll begin." "Bro Inu," said Lin Wuxiang, gazing into the distance. He could see the strong cultivators of the Yin clan. Yin Rui, Yin Gutian and Inu. Lin Feng frowned. Yin Rui was talking to someone, they looked happy and kept laughing. Behind him was Pei Dongqing. They were with people from the Pei clan. "Brother Ren," said the leader of the Pei clan. The leader of the Pei clan, and Yin Rui walked over to someone and smiled. "Just call me Tian Xing, gentlemen," said the leader of the great imperial palace with a smile. These two people were both older than him. Cultivators don't have to adhere to formalities and stick to rules. Cultivation and strength are the most important things, said the strong cultivator of the Pei clan, laughing. 30 years ago, you dazzled on the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list. You were the best one. Your name was at the top of the list. You have caught up with us already, you're excellent. Ren Tianxing. Many people looked at the leader, their eyes glittering with sharp lights. Ren Tianxing used to be the first person on the Imperial ranking list 30 years before, known to be extremely arrogant. Now he looked wise, calm and serene. Many people remembered how terrifying and cruel he used to be. 30 years have passed, I feel ashamed, said Ren Tianxing patiently. The strong cultivator of the Pei Donglai smiled at Pei Donglai and said, Donglai, learn from him. Donglai is extremely talented. He'll definitely surpass me someday, said Ren Tianxing, smiling at Pei Donglai. Brother Ren, please teach the younger generation, agreed the strong cultivator of the Pei clan. By the way, after the end of the event, Yin Rui will make a public announcement. He has some good news. Is that so? Ren Tianxing looked at Yin Rui. Yin Rui smiled and nodded. Brother Ren, apart from that, after the event, I hope that Yin Gutian will be able to join the great imperial palace. He's extremely talented. I'm sure you can help recommend him. I've heard about Gutian good. After that, I'll take him to the great imperial palace, replied Ren Tianxing smiling. The great imperial palace always needs more power and influence. The Yin clan, the Pei clan, and so on are very powerful. The great imperial palace is happy to have people from such incredible groups. Chattered the crowd when they saw those people smiling and chatting happily. At that moment, Lin Wuxiang pulled a long face. The Yin clan and the Pei clan had excellent relations. It wasn't a good thing for him. He looked at Yin, who was also looking at him. However, Pei Dongqing noticed this. He walked over to Yin and stayed in front of her to prevent Lin Wuxiang and Yin from looking at one another. He said to Yin, Little you, after the end of the event, my grandfather will announce the good news about us. Bastard, said Yin icily. Pei Dongqing pulled a long face. He turned around and looked at Lin Wuxiang, smiling icily and showing him his middle finger. I'll kill that bastard, swore Lin Wuxiang icily. He clenched his fists, popping his bones. Cold and detached, said a voice in his brain. It was Lin Feng. If you're that easily angered, how can you be a good cultivator? Lin Feng asked Wuxiang. Wuxiang came back to his senses. He could remain calm when it came to other things, but he knew. Lin Feng, said someone at that moment. Lin Feng noticed someone from the Ji clan addressing him. Where is Ji Jiang? The leader of the Ji clan asked him icily. How could I know about the whereabouts of the members of your clan? Retorted Lin Feng disdainfully. After Yin Rui's birthday party, Ji Jiang followed you to exchange views on cultivation with you. But then he disappeared. Some people also died. You killed them, right? The leader of the Ji clan demanded icily. People who attempt to kill me must die, said Lin Feng coldly, before turning away. The leader of the Ji clan was furious and said icily. Very good, Lin Feng. You will regret what you did. So you can try to kill people, but they can't strike back, sighed Lin Feng, shaking his head. Ji Chang, Ji Wuyo, and Ji Chang's club all bullied Tiantai's people. And back then the Ji clan didn't say anything. And when people became stronger and got their revenge or struck back, they threatened them. They didn't let people of the same generation compete. They always got involved and plotted against them. Some ancient clans had no principles. It was always the same. Power, influence and strength were the most important things in the cultivation world. If Lin Feng hadn't acted on the day of Ji Chang's champion ceremony, the consequences would have been tragic for him and his friends. Of course, Lin Feng could have ignored all of that, remained discreet and forgotten about those people. He could have given up, he could have stopped competing, he could have stopped becoming stronger. But that wasn't Lin Feng's personality. He was ready to die for his convictions, beliefs, and to become stronger. The Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list was about competing too. Only the best genius would rank first, and blood had to be spilled. Maybe Lin Feng would offend even more groups on today. Maybe he would die too. But he would never give up. Chapter 1948. Imperial ranking lists top 10 in the distance. A group of people arrived, a strong wind blowing about them. Someone darted ahead and landed on the stage. A young man descended from the sky and looked at the people of the great imperial palace at the top of the flight of stairs. Let's begin. Rin Tianxing looked at him and nodded. The 9 cultivators started moving and landed on the gigantic stage in 9 different places. They did some hand seals and drove their power into the stage at the same time. The stage lit up, marks appearing everywhere. Light beams dashed to the skies, dragging pillars with many carvings on them up from the ground. Celestial imperial pillars. The people's eyes glittered. There were 100 pillars, representing the 100 people of the imperial ranking list. At this moment, the gigantic stage was dazzling everyone. The 9 cultivators rose up in the air and went back to the top of the flight of stores. One of them said, "Everybody, please get onto the celestial imperial pillars. Your rank is already carved on them." When Lin Feng heard that, he gazed into the distance. Indeed, on the pillars, there were many names which corresponded to the 100 people who were on the imperial ranking list. Silver lights shone. Yin Gutian jumped up, followed by many others. They all landed on the pillars. "Yin Gutian, today we'll see if you progress," said someone loudly. A strong cultivator wearing golden armor jumped and turned into a shining golden light beam. He immediately jumped onto the 9th celestial imperial pillar as the 9th cultivator on the imperial ranking list. He was from the Huangjin clan. Their specialty was golden energy. The Yin clan's specialty was silver energy. They were thus nicknamed the Golden and Silver clans, and were longtime rivals. The cultivator from the Golden clan was Jin Xingzi. Wang Zhong is here too. The crowd saw the 10th cultivator of the imperial ranking list, Wang Zhong. He was from the noble Fangtian clan. It was a powerful clan in the Holy City. They controlled various spells related to defense and armor, and were very powerful. The crowd watched all those geniuses rise up in the air. Lin Feng looked at all the strong cultivators. His eyes were twinkling in anticipation. When he had just arrived in the Holy City, he had spent most of his time at the university, and then he had gone to hell. But the Holy City was one of the 3 main cities of the Dark Knight region. The sects and clans of the Holy City were much more powerful than those in the vast celestial ancient city. There were a great number of powerful clans in the Holy City, and there were also many people from rich foreign families too. But they weren't more numerous than the strong cultivators of the Holy City. At that moment, the temperature suddenly dropped as snowflakes appeared. A group of young people arrived in a slow and grandiose manner as the crowd sighed and looked on. The young men were extremely handsome, and the young women were stunning and looked like celestial beings. They all looked extremely strong too. Many people admired them for their social background. 2. Their leader appeared and jumped onto the 6th celestial imperial pillar. Xue Shenfeng from the Snow clan, 6th cultivator on the imperial ranking list, he came back. The crowd looked up at Xue Shenfeng, their eyes twinkling. A strong cultivator of the Snow clan was behind him. He gazed into the distance and noticed Meng Qing and Lin Feng in the crowd. "There," said Xue Fan sharply. Xue Shenfeng's eyes were snowy white, as if they were frozen. He was staring at Meng Qing and Lin Feng. "Whether you're from the Snow clan or not, you'll come with me after the Pathfinder Day of the imperial ranking list," said Xue Shenfeng to Meng Qing indifferently yet firmly. He didn't look at Lin Feng again. Even when these people were outside of the Snow clan, few people dared go against them. Lin Feng had to behave before them. "He's extremely strong, much stronger than me," whispered Lin Feng to himself. Shui Feng was the sixth cultivator of the imperial ranking list. He was truly strong. The first 23 people of the imperial ranking list were all at the top of the Huangqi layer. They had almost no enemies at the same cultivation level. And now it was the Pathfinder day of the imperial ranking list. Some things were going to change. "I'm going," said Lin Feng, nodding at the people who were with him. Lin Feng jumped onto the 25th pillar. He didn't know why, but the Great Imperial Palace had changed his ranking in the previous days. That guy is Lin Feng. A year ago, he became famous because he fought against Ji Chang on the day of his champion ceremony. And back then he had just become a medium-level emperor. He's very talented, but he can't win against Ji Chang. The level difference between them is too big. His Dao strength is not as good as Ji Chang's. I've heard that the Ji clan wants to kill him today. I wonder if it will happen or not. Many people recognized Lin Feng. He was famous enough by now. "Brother Lin Feng, long time no see. You look as dignified as before," Chu Chunxiu said to Lin Feng. Chu Chunxiu was wearing fine clothes. He looked like a nobleman and nodded at Lin Feng. "Brother Chu, you're already a high-level emperor, and you are the 20th cultivator on the imperial ranking list. I'm sure you'll end up in the top 5 today," Lin Feng replied to him. Chu Chunxiu's eyes twinkled. He rolled up his sleeves and smiled happily. "We'll see about that, Brother Lin. Chu Chunxiu has changed," thought some students of the Celestial Godly University. He looked more noble now. Many things are going to change drastically today. Brilliant lights flared. Ren Tianxing looked at the cultivators on the pillars and said, "Shi Yin Feng." Rumbling sounds spread in the air. The crowd gazed into the distance and saw gigantic monoliths moving towards the stage. The monoliths landed on the stage and fused together. A few seconds later, a gigantic stone man appeared. It looked almost alive as it took a few steps. The stage shook violently and crackled under its feet. The stone man jumped onto the 5th celestial imperial pillar and started shaking violently. Pieces of stone started falling off his body. In the end, he was only as tall as a normal human being, but still looked like a statue. The 5th cultivator of the imperial ranking list was Shi Yin Feng, a descendant of the Stone King. "Buddhist warrior," proclaimed another voice. Holy lights blazed forth. The Buddhist warrior appeared, surrounded by dazzling golden lights and a terrifying battling qi. He was from the Canaan Buddhist clan, a clan which loved fighting. The Buddhist warrior was the 4th cultivator of the imperial ranking list. After him, an evil and cold wind started blowing. The crowd could feel the chill. It pierced right down to their bones and souls. A ferocious ghost appeared in the sky, bearing fangs and brandishing claws. It turned into a young man in black clothes. He looked extremely pale, as if he had had no blood, like a ghost. He landed on the 3rd celestial imperial pillar. Hades Gili, he knows the Ghost Sutra. He practices ghost cultivation. When he kills people, there's no blood. He's the 3rd on the imperial ranking list. He's the most evil cultivator in the top 10. Nobody wants to fight against him, he's too dangerous, gossiped the crowd when they saw that young man. He looked like a real ghost, like a Death Reaper. The Ghost Sutra was a terrifying book which contained evil skills and techniques. And this man had an innate Ghost King body, allowing him to easily master the Ghost Sutra. He only had a Ghost Chi though, not a King Chi. A strong wind started blowing in the sky. The earth and sky emitted whistling sounds and roared in a thundering rage. The crowd was delighted and gazed into the distance in anticipation. Clouds appeared and the strong wind howled above them. The clouds condensed and emitted whistling sounds. It looked like the earth and sky were going to collapse. Thunder rang out once, twice, shaking the earth and sky, roiling the clouds. Finally, 2 silhouettes appeared. Ingqing Jichang. The people's eyes were shining. Those were the 2 champions of the holy city, the 2 cultivators of the top of the imperial ranking list, the strongest cultivators of the Huangqi layer in the holy city. The event hadn't even started, yet that they were fighting already. The 2 cultivators seemed to be far in the distance, but when they moved, a gigantic ocean of energies appeared, and they immediately appeared in front of the crowd before slowly descending from the sky. Ingcheng, Jichang. I want to ask you about your path on this Pathfinder day. Gili said in an evil way. Jichong and Ingcheng both looked at him. You're neither a ghost nor a human being, said Ingcheng, rolling up his sleeves and landing on the first celestial imperial pillar. He looked imposing and awe-inspiring. Jichong landed on the second pillar. Some people still hadn't arrived. Maybe they were still traveling. Maybe they had died abroad and nobody knew about it. So some other people would have to replace them. Chapter 1949. The path is difficult at the top of the flight of stairs. The 9 cultivators of the great imperial palace looked at the sky before Ren Tianxing said, "It's time. People who haven't come will be erased from the list. If they come back, then they'll just have to challenge the genius who has replaced them on the imperial ranking list. Now who wants to replace them?" Suddenly the atmosphere became chaotic. Those people weren't there, but it might just be temporary. When Ren Tianxing said that, many people ran towards the empty celestial imperial pillars. However, first arrived, first served. Quickly, there were people on every celestial imperial pillar. 100 people, 100 imposing and awe-inspiring people. "Brother Feng, you're in charge of the first phase," Ren Tianxing said to Feng Shintian. Feng Shintian nodded and rose up in the air. He looked at the crowd and said, "How many people still want to compete for the championship?" "I'll try," said someone jumping forwards. "I'll try too," shouted someone else. After a short time, several people had jumped forwards. "Duga the winner, Lang Yi," they all came out, thought Lin Feng. His eyes were twinkling. Duga the winner had the godly imprint king body, and Lang Yi had the world king body. With both having king bodies, even though they were only medium-level emperors, they couldn't be compared with ordinary medium-level emperors. At the same time, Lin Feng turned around and looked at Tiantai's people. 2 people came out of the group, Jian Mang and Ho Qing Lin. Jian Mang is really strong. He will definitely be ranked in the imperial ranking list. And Ho Qing Lin understands reincarnation Dao strength. He should also be able to get ranked, thought Lin Feng, smiling to himself. Lin Feng didn't know how strong Dugu the winner and Lang Yi had become, as he had not met them for some time. Chu Chunqiu's progress was impressive. He was already a high-level emperor, and he controlled sky-absorbing Dao strength. He was terrifyingly strong, and was considered as a legendary cultivator in the Celestial Godly University. 13 people want to compete for the championship and replace the others, chattered the crowd, their eyes twinkling with anticipation. As expected, the Pathfinder day of the Imperial ranking list was going to be fun. Some people rise, some people die, but all in all strong cultivators need to find their path. They can battle to death for that and nobody can get involved, said Feng Shintian, releasing swift sword chi. Nobody flinched. The 13 cultivators stayed there. Feng Shintian looked at them and said, "Now, if you want to challenge those at the top of the Imperial ranking list, do it. If you defeat them, they'll be taken off the list. We haven't found our path yet. If we get eliminated by people who are at the bottom of the list, then we won't be able to find our path," said one of them slowly. "If we get eliminated by people who are the bottom of the ranking list, then it's useless," said another one slowly. Lin Feng was surprised. He had thought those people would immediately try to get to the top of the list, but the 13 people didn't move. They thought that if they were unable to deal with the others, who weren't high up in the ranking list, then getting to the top of the list was useless. "Someone who understands Dao," said Feng Shintian, looking at Ho Qing Lin and the others. Jian Mang didn't release chi. He just walked forwards indifferently. Many people were startled. This guy was blind. "Name? You understand Dao?" asked Feng Shintian. "Jian Mang Light Dao," replied Jian Mang calmly. Many people were amazed. "Light Dao." Feng Shintian looked at the others and said calmly, "Who else wants to come? Losing against him wouldn't be a disgrace. He understands a very rare type of Dao strength, the Light Dao," agreed someone, jumping and landing in front of Jian Mang. He released his chi and strength pulsed out. Jian Mang looked calm and indifferent. Suddenly, dazzling lights appeared as suddenly moved invisibly fast. A sword light appeared, shaking everything around it. The crowd had to close their eyes. His enemy shouted explosively. Then metallic sounds rang out amid multiple explosions. Cutting lights were flung in all directions. When the lights dispersed, the eyes of the strong cultivator, who had faced Jian Meng, were bleeding. He was blinded. I saw your light Dao and you blinded. I will never see lights again. I will remember you, Jian Meng, said the cultivator. His eyes were dripping blood as he turned around and left. Jian Meng landed on the pillar where he had been standing. Jian Meng's understanding of the light Dao is incredible, thought Lin Feng. His eyes were gleaming. Jian Meng was really strong. He was different from people from Tiantai, who had received the Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures, as he hadn't. He had always relied on himself to become strong. And because he was blind, he had to understand light Dao. It was the only way he could see. At the top of the flight of stairs, the cultivators of the Great Imperial Palace wrote Jian Meng's name on the imperial ranking list. But it was just temporary. Ho Qinglin also won his battle. A year ago, he had comprehended reincarnation Dao. He understood it even better a year later. People who fell into his reincarnation holes never came back. The cultivator who had lost against Ho Qinglin said, "You control reincarnation strength. Within 3 years, you'll definitely be in the top 3 on the imperial ranking list." The last 2 members were eliminated from the imperial ranking list by Ho Qinglin and Jian Meng. Some people had started understanding Dao strength, but not that well. Duga the winner and Lang Yi also replaced some ranked people. Duga the winner could already release 3,600 imprint lights. His King Qi was incredible, and he could turn it into gigantic celestial imprints. Many high-level emperors were astonished. People who had king-type bodies were incredible. Lang Yi used world strength to attack explosively. He also won that way. Lin Feng had watched his battle careful. Thanks to their king-type bodies, some cultivators could easily fill in the gaps caused by cultivation level differences. They were all incredible, and could already end up in the top 30. After the 13 battles, 7 people were eliminated from the imperial ranking list. The event hadn't even started properly, and things had already started changing. That was the cruelty of the cultivation world, and of the imperial ranking list. However, the crowd was still excited. Every 10 years, there were new people who understood Dao strength, and ended up in the imperial ranking list. Feng Shintian glanced over the 100 people, and withdrew back to the top of the flight of stairs. Ren Tianxing came forwards. He looked to the crowd and asked, "Among the 100 fighters, 33 understand Dao strength, plus Jian Meng and Ho Qinglin. That's 35. If I have forgotten anyone, please tell me." 35 people understand Dao strength. There must not be anyone else in the holy city. The path is a difficult one, whispered the crowd. 35 people was nothing. The holy city was gigantic, and there were so many geniuses. The holy city was one of the strongest cities, and yet only 35 emperors understood Dao strength. "Since I haven't forgotten anyone, please ring the bell," said Ren Tianxing. A gigantic ancient bell appeared, and 8 disciples of the great imperial palace rang it. The sound waves rolled out with great power, and distorted the space. People had the sensation they were going to suffocate. That bell was called the Great Imperial Bell, or the Pathfinder Bell. It was used to find one's path. I'm not going to talk about the rules, they're the same as before. Even though the name of the event is the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial Ranking List, the Great Imperial Bell is for people who understand Dao, since the Dao is the path. Those who can't stand it can leave. Other people can replace them. If you decide to use the bell anyway, you might die. Only the first 50 people can use it, declared Ren Tianxing. He looked at the 100 people and asked, "Who wants to try first?" "I'm coming." Someone flashed forwards. It was Zhu Wuji, 23rd on the imperial ranking list. "All right, please. You'll be the first one," said Ren Tianxing, moving back. At the top of the celestial imperial pillars, many people sat down cross-legged. Their qi was terrifying. They closed their eyes in a solemn and respectful way. The Pathfinder Day was finally going to start. Zhu Wuji landed in front of the bell, his robe fluttering in the wind. Those who were at the bottom of the imperial ranking list looked anxious. Suddenly, Zhu Wuji jumped forwards, opened his mouth widely, and roared with rage. "Arg! His terrifying shout struck the great imperial bell. Suddenly, 100 lights moved towards the 100 cultivators. The earth and sky were shaking violently. Many people's clothes were suddenly torn apart. Their heads shook violently, as if they were going to explode. Some people put their hands on their ears, trying to block the pain. Zhu Wuji jumped forwards again and bombarded the bell with his fist, shouting furiously, "The path is hard, but I'll defy the gods to become a peerless cultivator." His explosive shout struck the bell again. Thunder rumbled. The earth and sky kept shaking violently as the sound waves rolled out. Someone was unable to resist and hurled away. His mouth bled violently, and his skull started crackling. Chapter 1950. Understanding the Tao and its principles, Zhu Wuji is walking on the path of violent sound waves. He understands thunderous sound wave strength. He can shout and kill people. The great imperial bell emits an explosive strength. The last 50 people on the imperial ranking list can't ask for their path. The watchers told one another. They understood the rules of the event. Some people were going to progress on their path, some others not. At that moment, Lin Feng was shaking violently. His muscles twitched. He had the impression he was going to die. The weaker people would be eliminated immediately. Someone exploded. Blood gushed out, and he fell from the top of the pillar. Arg, arg, arg. People roared furiously with pain. Many people were hurled away. They couldn't stand the Tao power. Ho Qing Lin released reincarnation Tao to surround his body. The Tao power couldn't pierce through. Duga the winner was surrounded by lights. Thunder rang out, and Tao power bombarded his imprints, but couldn't pierce through. Lang Yi was surrounded by world lights. He was in another world. The attack didn't affect him. Jian Mang was surrounded by light swords. The Tao power couldn't affect him either. The strong cultivators at the top of the celestial imperial pillars resisted the Tao power. The weakest ones were struck relentlessly, injured or killed. At that moment, Zhu Wuji shouted furiously. He kept attacking the bell, which kept counterattacking. Zhu Wuji was suddenly hurled backwards, coughing up blood. He landed back on his pillar. He sat down cross-legged, injured and trying to recover. The terrifying Tao power disappeared. Silhouettes rose up in the air. The pillars of those who had been smashed away were now free. They were too weak to resist against Tao power. Their fate had already been determined. They couldn't ask for their path anymore. Of course, they could ask their counterparts from the ranking list for pieces of advice. It was the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list. People could ask for their path, understand Tao principles, and comprehend how to progress on the path. The strong cultivators of the great imperial palace kept writing. People looked at the cultivators at the bottom of the list, who wouldn't be able to rise up in the list anymore, unless they displayed extraordinary performances after the event. That great imperial bell is so strange. Its Tao power counterattacks are powerful. Zhu Wuji was even injured, thought Lin Feng. That bell was indeed a precious treasure. Who else wants to try and ask for their path? Asked Ren Tianxing. Someone new rose up in the air. It was Jin Xingzi. People frowned. He was in the top 10, and controlled destructive gold Tao power. His Tao was terrifying. How many people would resist his Tao on the celestial imperial pillars? Let's see how many people will resist, and how strange the great imperial bell is. Jin Xingzi proclaimed. His robe fluttered violently, as he turned into a dazzling golden figure. The crowd stared at him. Some people sat down cross-legged again and released qi. They were getting ready to resist Jin Xingzi's golden Tao. Jin Xingzi was extremely strong, and had an explosive strength. If anyone was careless, they could die. Jin Xingzi was surrounded by golden armor. He walked to the bell, waving his hands. His Tao power emitted whistling sounds as he hammered the bell. A mysterious Tao power rolled out from the impact. Lin Feng's expression changed drastically. His arms started turning into gold, before he released qi and broke it. Disperse. Lin Feng released Devamara Culpa's strength to protect himself. He also used his physical strength. Jin Xingzi had turned into a statue of gold. He didn't look like a human being anymore. He attacked the bell 3 times and 3 times, golden light beams shot out. Explosion and rumbling sounds spread in the air. A strong cultivator turned into a golden statue and exploded dead. Back! Some people knew they would die, so they ran away and jumped off the pillar. Some people rise, some people die, said someone in a solemn and respectful way. However, that cultivator remained motionless and let the golden energy surround him. He was gambling with his life. He was there to progress on the path. The bell rang again. Jin Xingzi's silhouette became distorted, like he could explode at any time. However, he looked determined and stood there steadily. His chi rolled in waves furiously and dashed to the skies. Everyone was astonished. His Tao power had just broken through. Jin Xingzi was suffering though, and his figure was also distorted. It looked like he could explode too. The Tao power there was more violent than when it arrived at the pillars, and he was at the front of it. He attacked the bell again. The bell counterattacked. Jin Xingzi's golden armor broke, his arm crackled. It was getting very dangerous. That's enough, shouted someone loudly. A dozen cultivators at the top of the pillars were suffering too much. Some people thought Jin Xingzi was going insane. They wanted him to stop. However, the explosive shout didn't prevent Jin Xingzi from continuing. He continued as if he hadn't heard anything. His body kept crackling as he continued his insane attack. Someone else's body started crackling, and they died. Jin Xingzi raised his arm again. The crowd started suffocating. However, at that moment he finally stopped. It was too dangerous even for him. Today, I'm not here only to ask for my path. I'm also here to watch and learn from others, said Jin Xingzi sighing. Many people took a deep breath with relief. However, 32 people had already been blown away and 2 had died. How cruel. Those people were strong cultivators from the imperial ranking list. All of them were talented, but they had died because of the Tao power. The cultivators who were in the top 10 were terrifying. In a one-on-one battle, they could kill those at the bottom of the list in one strike. At that moment, Lin Feng closed his eyes, Kulpa strength twinkled around him, and a golden chi appeared. He opened his eyes and took a deep breath. He understood that today wasn't about fighting. It was about something that went beyond a simple fight. A strong wind started blowing. Xiaoyu landed in front of the bell and punched it violently. A terrifying evil energy rolled out and corroded people's bodies, trying to rot them away. After Jin Xingzi's turn, it was difficult to resist him. Xiaoyu's decaying qi made them start rotting. A vile stench filled the air. Evil decaying Tao power was terrifying. Ji Chong released destructive Tao. All those cultivators' Tao couldn't affect him. He seemed indestructible. Ing Chung released chaotic Tao power. A vortex appeared around him, and the decaying Tao strength disappeared into the vortex. The stone cultivator seemed invincible too. Xue Shenfeng was surrounded by snowflakes. The Tao power kept freezing. Someone else drew people's attention, Chu Chunqiu. He didn't do anything, he just absorbed the Tao power and made it flow throughout his body. The top 10 are terrifying. The Tao power of the Great Imperial Bell doesn't affect them at all. Who would win in one-on-ones? Speculated the audience very quickly. Even more people were forced away from the pillars. After such a short time, only 50 people were left. Chapter 1951. Slaughtering Xiaoyu knocked the bell, and another dozen cultivators fell off the celestial imperial pillars. The top 50 had already appeared. Lang Yi, Dugu the winner, the blind guy, and the one who controls reincarnation strength, are quite persistent and determined. They're going to end up in the top 50-something. The crowd was saying as they watched the fighters. Ho Ching Lin was a little bit higher than 50th, since many people had already been eliminated. At that moment, another silhouette jumped forwards. This cultivator controlled snow energy, and snowflakes appeared around him, the temperature falling rapidly. Xue Shenfeng walked over to the Great Imperial Bell and said coldly, "Great Imperial Bell, let me find my path and become stronger." His sleeves fluttered in the wind as ice and frost energies bombarded the bell. The bell rang, and a layer of ice appeared around it with the sound of ice cracking. A few silhouettes were immediately frozen. Dong dong dong. Xue Shenfeng attacked the bell 3 times in a row. The space around him kept freezing. 2 more cultivators turned into ice statues, their hearts beating slower and slower. "Back!" shouted one of the frozen people furiously. He jumped away. The layer of ice around him cracked, and he left the pillar. He instantly felt better, as he had almost died. Xue Shenfeng's face was covered with snow as his own Dao power kept bombarding him. He didn't stop though. He jumped forwards again, and the bell kept ringing. Some strong cultivators continued to leave their pillars. The last 50 cultivators were already determined. They wouldn't be able to rise in the ranking list anymore. Some of them had even died, and would never have an opportunity again. Xue Shenfeng looked like an ice statue already. He could sense his own terrifying Dao power, as he was being attacked by his own strength. The great imperial bell rang 7 more times. There was a thick layer of snow Dao power on Xue Shenfeng's body, and the whole stage was frozen. The cracking of frozen air kept creaking out. Some of the cultivators of the top 50 also started freezing. Maybe their rank would change, of course. It meant that those who were lower in the ranking list would also have an opportunity to rise. At the foot of the stage, the crowd was getting cold even as they were amazed. Xue Shenfeng was astonishingly strong. Because of him, more than 60 people's ranks were already fixed. Is he going to make the bell ring an 8th time? The people looked at Xue Shenfeng, and were stunned as he slowly raised his arm, and bombarded the great imperial bell again. Dao power bombarded Xue Shenfeng again, the pressure driving him backwards and down onto his butt. The ice energy turned into a destructive ice lake, covering the stage with ice. People descended from the celestial imperial pillars one after another. The crowd realized that only 30 people were left on the pillars. Lin Feng was still calmly seated on his pillar. His eyes were closed, and he was surrounded by Death Dao intent and Snow Dao power. He felt extremely cold too, but he started understanding what it meant to find one's path. The stage was frozen over, and the ice remained for a very long time. The members of the Great Imperial Palace didn't say anything, and ignored the way it hindered the audience. After a while, the ice energies around Xue Shenfeng dispersed, and he withdrew to his pillar. Those on the pillars looked hesitant. What would happen if those who were higher ranked than Xue Shenfeng bombarded the bell? Wouldn't it be even more terrifying? Those watching didn't even dare to imagine. If you don't ask for your path, how can you master Dao strength? Murmured someone to themselves before jumping off a pillar. Finding one's own path was extremely complicated. It was an incredible opportunity they had before them. There were many strong cultivators in the imperial ranking list, and now they had the opportunity to understand Dao strength even better. How could they miss that opportunity? It was dangerous, but it was also a great chance. Those who were at the bottom of the imperial ranking list couldn't even ask for their path. They could only watch and learn. The stone man finally moved, landing in front of the bell. The crowd was startled, as Shi Yunfeng had turned into a stone man again. He looked strange and monstrous. And then he punched the bell. He punched the bell 4 times in a row. The ice hadn't completely dispersed, but when he punched the bell, it disappeared completely. The air was suddenly filled with stone energies. At the same time, many people started turning into stone statues, their arms starting to turn into stony matter. They couldn't move anymore. Those people's faces turned deathly pale. The stone man punched the bell twice again. Some people turned into statues. His stone strength was terrifying. The bell rang a 7th time, and the air seemed to groan and grind. Some stone statues immediately exploded as those people died. More people turned into stones and couldn't move. Some others managed to leave the pillars using their full strength. Lin Feng had turned into a stone statue. He had the sensation his body was going to explode, but at the same time, his physical strength was astonishing. Nobody there could compete with him in terms of physical strength. More destructive strength oppressed him, and he condensed more cosmic energies, his entire body starting to glow. He looked like an indestructible ancient god. When he started bleeding, he controlled life and death Dao power. He couldn't block the stone strength directly. He had to use his pure physical strength to block it. Yet at the same time, he could still study it. There are still so many people. How annoying. Geely looked at the crowd with his pale white eyes. After Shi Yunfeng withdrew, Geely left his pillar floating in the air like a ghost. His eyes looked terrifying as 2 light beams emerged from them and stuck the bell. The space around him turned into hell. Many ghosts appeared in people's brains, bearing fangs and brandishing claws. The ghosts wanted to kill everyone. Gili is the most evil cultivator of the imperial ranking list. He understands the Ghost Sutra. The crowd was shuddering with fear. Gili looked dreadful as he attacked into the bell. More ghosts appeared in people's brains and wailed. A terrifying ghost king appeared in Lin Feng's brain. His soul shook violently. The ghosts wanted to kill him. Die! His soul turned into a death sword and cut the ghost apart instantly. However, the sound of the bell ringing out, and more ghosts appeared in his brain. He had the sensation he was surrounded by ghosts. Gili is the third cultivator on the imperial ranking list. He's extremely strong, thought Lin Feng. At that moment, he didn't know that several people had already died on top of the pillars, their souls destroyed. And Gili didn't stop. More and more ghosts appeared in everybody's brains. The ancient bell kept ringing. He's slaughtering people, thought the crowd. They were astonished and shaking violently. Gili was killing the ranked cultivators. People who could escape did so, but those who couldn't seemed to be dying one after another. Gili was very strong, and few people could compete with him. His Dao power was destroying them. Only a dozen cultivators could resist Gili's Dao power. The bell rang an 8th time. Ghosts wailed furiously, their horrible shrieks spreading in the air. People's faces stiffened. Some people in the distance looked furious. As among the people who were dying, some were from very prestigious clans, and Gili was slaughtering them. None of the people who were on the imperial ranking list were weak. They were all geniuses of the Huangqi layer. But the crowd was now reminded that there could be huge differences between cultivators of the Huangqi layer, to the extent that one person could slaughter so many geniuses easily. Chapter 1952. Death Funeral Bell. When the bell rang an 8th time, a cultivator's soul exploded instantly. A terrifying ghost had appeared in his brain and destroyed him instantly. How ferocious and cruel! Gili looked like a terrifying ghost. His own soul was shaking violently as a demoniac ghost bearing fangs and brandishing claws appeared there. The ghost was trying to kill its master. All things are of monad nature, but differ in form. In the end, nothing is indestructible, swore Gili icily. His eyes were magnetic as more ghostly light beams pierced through the bell. Someone gave a horrible shriek and died, not having the time to react before a ghost killed him. So many people had already left their pillars, including some people who were in the top 20. Lin Feng's head was surrounded by terrifying death lights which kept rotating. He looked like a motionless and indestructible mountain. Gili's mouth was bleeding. Drops of blood fell onto his sleeves as he went back to his pillar. At that moment, just over 20 people were left. Many of the people who were better ranked than Lin Feng had already left. The members of the Great Imperial Palace continued modifying the list. Lin Feng's rank increased. They also removed some people from the imperial ranking list and replaced them with other names. It was shocking in its heartlessness. So many people had died. This event was brutal and cruel. Many people couldn't ask for their path anymore. Only a few people could compete with Gili. The crowd looked at Ji Chong and Ing Cheng. What would happen if they knocked the bell? It would be terrifying. Would it be worse than Gili? Ji Chong glanced at the others, and most especially at Lin Feng. Then, he jumped forwards and landed in front of the bell. Dang 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 dang. The great imperial bell rang shrilly a few times, and a terrifying destructive strength rolled out. The air shook violently, as did those left on the pillars. Their muscles twitched, and they had the impression their brains were going to explode. It was extremely painful. Dang dang. Ji Chong continued striking the bell. Some people were hurled away from the pillars, unable to withstand the pressure. They had to be careful, or they would die. Dang! When the bell rang an 8th time, 2 people had no time to escape and exploded instantly. They wanted to escape from their physical body with their soul, but the waves from the bell also crushed their souls. Piss off! Shouted Ji Chong explosively, staring at Lin Feng. Destructive Dao continued rolling out. Lin Feng kept shaking. His muscles twitched, and even his bones felt sore. Lin Feng's eyes were closed. He let the strong wind brush against his body, but remained motionless. His cosmic energies intertwined and turned into strange ancient imprints surrounding his whole body. The air crackled as it was destroyed by the Dao power as well. Ji Chong looked proud. He jumped forward again and released more destructive Dao at the bell. The air started to explode as more destructive energies rolled out again. Many of those left coughed up blood. One of the cultivators jumped off the pillar. Even the cultivators of the top 10 looked anxious. Lin Feng's ancient imprints exploded, and his body crackled. He released more strength. The Dao power finally weakened, and Lin Feng recovered. Ji Chong glared at Lin Feng ferociously and went back to the second pillar. He looked imposing and awe-inspiring. He made the great imperial bell ring 10 times, but he hasn't used his full strength, otherwise he could have made it ring more, was the crowd's assessment. Ji Chong was really terrifyingly strong, and Lin Feng was his main target. Everybody knew that Lin Feng had fought against him on the day of his champion ceremony. Ji Chong was furious that he hadn't managed to drive Lin Feng away. When the Dao power dispersed, the remaining cultivators calmed down. Lin Feng looked aloof and serene. He was already 13th on the imperial ranking list. The crowd looked at the list. Apart from those who were high up in the imperial ranking list, the other names had all changed. This Pathfinder Day really shook the whole city. Ren Tianxing remained silent for a few seconds and then said to the 13, "Who wants to use the bell?" Many people looked at Ing Cheng, but Ing Cheng didn't seem like he wanted to act. Some other people who were farther down in the ranking list knocked the bell, but their Dao wasn't powerful enough to affect the other cultivators. The crowd kept thinking about Ji Chong and Geely. The Great Imperial Bell is a bit like the celestial Pathfinder plates of the Milky Way battlefield. What kind of special power does it contain? Thought Lin Feng, as he finally jumped down to the bell. Many people were staring at him. Lin Feng released Death Dao Determination. He stretched out his hand. His death lights rotated at full strength, and then crashed onto the bell. The bell sounded just like a funeral bell ringing. It didn't affect the crowd, however. They just sensed a few threads of death energy. Dang! Lin Feng punched the bell again. A thread of death strength spread in every direction. He also sensed his own death strength. A strong wind started blowing. Lin Feng continued punching the bell, and sensing the strange and mysterious sound waves. He didn't realize, but slowly, a strong death wind had started blowing. The crowd started feeling colder and colder. They slowly sensed the Death Dao power building higher and higher. The bell rang 6 times. The Death Chi started whistling. The air was filled with more and more death energy. The Death Dao power surrounded people and started penetrating into their souls. Some people started becoming gray as the Death Chi corroded their bodies. They felt colder and colder as their very life was attacked. It was a funeral bell. The Dao strength wasn't evil like Geely's Dao, and it wasn't explosive like Ji Chang's Dao, but it was slow and sly. When the bell rang for the 7th time, the terrifying death wind became as sharp as blades. People's faces turned deathly pale. Many people had the impression that they were dying. Dong! The bell rang for the 8th time. Some people instantly died. Some others groaned with pain and collapsed softly. They had hesitated to leave, but now it was too late. Some people were petrified and staring at Lin Feng. He had already made the bell ring 8 times. Death Chi flew throughout Lin Feng's body and penetrated into his soul. Lin Feng sensed that the death strength was corroding his body. However, he looked determined and steady. He took a step forwards again. Many of those remaining jumped away when they saw that. How scary would the 9th strike be? Dong! The funeral bell rang again. A wave of death strength rolled out above the stage. Some people collapsed dead. Some other people fell down on their knees and felt weak, furious at Lin Feng. What an insane guy. Death strength. Lin Feng calmly sensed the death strength. He sensed the death chi flowing throughout his body, but in the end, it turned into vitality. He was walking on the path of life and death, not just death. His life was his death was his life. Death made him alive, life made him dead. Dong! The bell rang a 10th time. A tornado of death strength appeared. Ji Chong released terrifying amounts of destructive Dao to protect himself, and managed to destroy some death strength. But some threads of steel managed to pierce through his skin. His face turned gray. Lin Feng's robe and hair were fluttering violently. He struck the bell again, and the sound waves moved towards Ji Chong. "Piss off," said Lin Feng in a voice of the devil. His death chi penetrated into Ji Chang's body again, who became even grayer. Chapter 1953. Competition for the path. It was as if the bell had turned into an indestructible funeral bell. It kept resonating and death's strength kept rolling out. People kept jumping off the pillars in terror. They hadn't thought that Lin Feng would make the bell ring 10 times. The death tornado was deadly. Ji Chang released even more destructive Dao strength to counter it. He had to act quickly. The death strength was corroding his body. At the same time, he also released his dazzling cyan dragon totems. He looked like a dragon king at that moment. Empty words, said Ji Chang after he heard Lin Feng. Lin Feng closed his eyes. He was in the hurricane of death energy. The Dao intent gave him the impression that he was dead, as if he had lost his life and worldly affairs had nothing to do with him anymore. However, there were still threads of indestructible vitality in his body, like candles protecting his life. Some people rise, some people die. My path is about death, but how could I die? Death is my path, thought Lin Feng. Everyone was staring at Lin Feng. He raised his hand again. People's hearts were pounding furiously. Piss off, shouted Lin Feng explosively again. It was the 12th time the bell rang. The air groaned with the weight of ages. Death energy crashed out like ocean waves, and crashed onto Ji Chang's body. He had the impression he was going to die, and immediately left the celestial imperial pillar, his face deathly pale. Ji Chang had had to leave, or he would have died. He didn't want to gamble with his life. But what a humiliation. He had tried to make Lin Feng get down off the pillar and failed. But Lin Feng had managed to force him off. He had failed utterly. The path of life and death is difficult. It's difficult for people to control life and death strength. But since it's my path, how could it kill me? Otherwise, what would be the purpose of Dao strength anyway? Lin Feng murmured to himself. He released even more death Dao determination, and struck the bell again. This time the air was howling with the end of times. An infinity of death lights illuminated the atmosphere, and especially the 100 pillars. However, there was nobody there anymore. Everybody who could had left. They were all staring at Lin Feng. 13th time. Was he trying to commit suicide? Wondered the crowd. Lin Feng was already completely gray and motionless. He looked like a cadaver. Is he dead? The crowd was astonished and staring at Lin Feng. I've heard that some people sometimes died on the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list, while asking for their path. I wouldn't have thought I'd see it with my own eyes today. Poor guy. Some people sighed. Lin Feng had managed to knock the bell 12 times. That was already astonishing, showing great talent. His understanding of the Dao was incredible, but the bell could kill him with his own Dao. However, at that moment life strength rose up in the air. And then more and more life strength appeared, and started rotating before turning into a strong wind. Green lights of life chi started twinkling all around Lin Feng. It was replacing the death strength. The crowd frowned. Lin Feng wasn't dead. He had knocked the bell 13 times, and he hadn't died. He had even made everybody else leave the celestial imperial pillars. At that moment, Lin Feng suddenly opened his eyes, glowing with life. The thick death chi was all turning into life chi. It kept rotating and penetrating into Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng returned to his pillar. Everybody remained silent. The others hesitantly went back onto their pillars. Their hearts were pounding as they stared at Lin Feng. His Dao power was incredible. He wasn't weaker than those in the top 10. He might even be stronger. He could definitely pose a threat to the cultivators who were in the top 10. The eyes of the members of the Great Imperial Palace were glittering. Lin Feng had made the bell ring 13 times. It was an incredible achievement. Ren Tianxing moved forward and asked those remaining, "Does anybody else want to try?" They all remained silent. Nobody could do better than Gili, Ji Chang, and especially Lin Feng. He had made the bell ring 13 times. In the Golden Imperial ranking list, there were 20 gaps to fill, for all those who had died. It was shocking. This time, the Pathfinder Day had been cruel. But those who hadn't died had the impression they had learned a lot. Their Dao had become much better, especially Lin Feng. He felt like he understood death Dao much better. He also realized it could be even more terrifying than he had ever imagined. The strong cultivators of the great imperial palace flashed over to the bell and took it away. Then, Ren Tianxing said, "Among those who haven't died, the last 50 cultivators of the list can't ask for their path." Many people sighed. More than 20 people had died, and coupled with the 50 people who had failed, it meant that 70 people couldn't ask for their path. The crowd was humbled. Even some people who understood Dao strength had missed their opportunity. "Brother Donglai, you're in charge now," said Ren Tianxing to Pei Donglai. Pei Donglai nodded and said to the list members, "The Pathfinder Day is about finding one's own path, about studying Dao strength. Now if you force a cultivator off his pillar, the cultivator, and all those under him will be downgraded consequently. And if you don't manage to force anyone else off, then you'll stay at the end of the list. Now the last one can ask for their path," said Pei Donglai, pointing at the 26th cultivator. That person jumped down in front of the others. If he didn't manage to force anyone off, he would stay 26th in the list. Lin Feng and the others remained at the top of the pillars. The emperor released his qi, which surrounded the whole stage. What a powerful intent. He must be from ancient university. Boom. Suddenly, the crowd saw a figure getting attacked. The man groaned icily as golden lights appeared, and both fighters' energies collided. "Destroy!" shouted the one who had been attacked. Instantly, the energies broke apart. The man who had attacked was stupefied. He glanced at the others, including Lin Feng. Even though Lin Feng's Dao intent was incredible, his cultivation level was low. He couldn't leave the celestial imperial pillar, otherwise he would lose. The man jumped towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng had the sensation kings were attacking him. Lin Feng smiled coldly. His cultivation level was too low, right? Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes became gray and filled with death strength. Death swords emerged from his eyes and pierced through the attacker. He also stamped the man's soul. Instantly, the destructive energies broke apart. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng explosively. Death energies condensed in his eyes. Death lights moved towards his opponent, and their energies collided. At the same time, Lin Feng also released a death sword. The man's face changed drastically, and he retreated quickly. Gray death chi pierced through his body and ate away at his life. Lin Feng raised his hands, and an ocean of death strength surged out. The cultivator released king fighters with a crash of imperial will, but they immediately disappeared in the face of the death energies. The death intent in Lin Feng's eyes was terrifying. The attacker's face turned gray. Death swords kept impaling his head. He closed his eyes, his face started rotting, and he collapsed. "Those who provoke me must die," Lin Feng said icily. He was also warning other people that if they provoked him, he'd kill them. When the crowd saw that, they were astonished and shook violently. That guy was strong and insane. He had just killed the 26th cultivator. "Lin Feng!" shouted someone in the distance. Those people from the attacker's clan. And they were all furious. They wanted to kill him. However, Lin Feng was anything but worried. He still looked like a death god. This was a perpetual competition. Ji Chang had pissed Lin Feng off, and he had forced him off the celestial imperial pillar. It was even worse if weaklings provoked him. Chapter 1954. Chu Chunqiu's strength. The crowd was astonished by Lin Feng's strength. He was amazingly strong for his level. The successive challengers didn't dare provoke Lin Feng anymore. The purpose of the competition was to find one's path. Cultivators didn't want to die. A dozen people challenged cultivators, and none of them dared challenge Lin Feng. Even if they managed to rank 11th or 12th, they'd have the occasion to find their path. Pei Donglai looked at Lin Feng, who was 13th at that moment. "It's your turn now," Pei Donglai said to Lin Feng indifferently. Lin Feng nodded and jumped forwards. He glanced at the others as he asked, "Do I have to win to find my path?" During this round, you can only challenge the 11th and 12th cultivators or above. Of course, even if you don't end up in the top 10, you'll have the opportunity to continue competing, replied Pei Donglai calmly. Lin Feng nodded. Lin Feng understood that only people who were under him in the ranking list could challenge him. So if he ranked first, everybody would be able to challenge him. He didn't want that. He needed to find a stable position in the ranking list to continue progressing. It wasn't an easy choice. Xiaoyu, said Lin Feng. Xiaoyu was the 8th cultivator. He controlled evil corrosion Dao. Lin Feng controlled death Dao. Destroying Xiaoyu's Dao could be easier for him. However, Lin Feng didn't really understand how strong the 9th and 10th cultivators, respectively Jin Xingzi and Wang Zhong, were. Even if he managed to rise up to the 8th position, it wouldn't mean that the 9th and 10th cultivators were weaker than him. From the beginning, the top 10 hadn't changed too much, and it seemed that they tried to keep it that way. After a short time, they would start challenging each other too. Lin Feng had to end up in the top 10 first, and for that he needed to kick someone out of the top 10, and Lin Feng didn't care who it was. Xiaoyu frowned and looked at Lin Feng's eyes, which were filled with death strength. His expression suddenly changed. Lin Feng dared choose him. Suddenly, death energies emerged from Lin Feng's eyes and penetrated into Xiaoyu's brain. In return, Xiaoyu released evil corrosive strength, a seemingly endless amount of which surged towards Lin Feng. However, millions of death culpa lights appeared around Lin Feng and blotted out the sky, destroying the corrosive strength at the same time. "I'll show you what it feels like to be dead," sneered Xiaoyu icily. He shouted furiously, the color of the sky changing again. Everything around Lin Feng became pitch black. "Your Dao is not too bad," said Lin Feng, moving forwards. He released another death sword towards Xiaoyu. At the same time, he waved his hands, and the air rumbled like opening graves as ancient imprints filled the air, shooting in Xiaoyu's direction, drawing down the power of the earth and sky, and clearing up the air. The decaying weight of an ocean of death energy gurgled and moved towards Xiaoyu, nearly freezing him in place when he saw it coming. He made some hand seals, condensing his corrosive intent before it turned into a rain, and the threads of corrosive evil energy collided with Lin Feng's death energy. "Get down!" An infinity of death intent washed over and ate away at Xiaoyu's body. Lin Feng also released a Nihility death sword. It looked even more terrifying than it used to be. Ancient imprints appeared in the ocean of death energies and flowed along with it. When Xiaoyu saw the ocean of death energy, he was dumbfounded. He was going to be swallowed if he didn't do anything. Xiaoyu jumped away frantically. The crowd was stupefied at the sight. Lin Feng immediately jumped onto his pillar. He was now 8th. "Piece of trash," groaned Jin Xingzi. All the others below Lin Feng were downgraded one position, not just Jin Xingzi. The new 13th cultivator looked at the cultivators who were in the top 10 and sighed. "I don't care about the ranking list, I care about Dao." He chose to fight against Ding Cheng. A terrifying wind made of destructive Dao rolled towards him. The ground shook violently. Ying Cheng's eyes looked like dazzling stars. Explosions kept spreading in the air. The challenger retreated, as Ying Cheng continued making hand seals. The wind made of destructive Dao was terrifying. "Piss off." A terrifying wave of energy crashed onto that cultivator's body, blood splashed, and he landed far in the distance, his face deathly pale. "You taught me a good lesson," sighed the man. He was still 13th. After that, it was the turn of the 12th cultivator, Chu Chunqiu. People's eyes were twinkling in anticipation. Chu Chunqiu was mysterious. They had all waited impatiently for this day. Who would he challenge? Suddenly, Chu Chunqiu looked at Ying Gutian, 7th in the ranking list from the Ying clan. Ying Gutian's eyes were silver. Chu Chunqiu wanted to force him down in the ranking list. The crowd stared at the two of them. Chu Chunqiu rarely showed how strong he was, so nobody really knew how strong he was. His chi was now king chi. Things would probably change for him on today. "Chu Chunqiu, are you sure?" said Ying Gutian. Dazzling silver lights started emerging from his eyes, and silver lights glittered. Chu Chunqiu took a step forwards, and then started moving towards Ying Gutian. His eyes turned into two black holes. Arg! Chu Chunqiu looked like a king. Ying Gutian shuddered with fear as his soul shook. He had the sensation he was losing control over his soul and body. His willpower started flowing out of his body. There was an explosion as a terrifying sword made of ancient imperial intent moved towards him with overwhelming pressure. His will started breaking apart, and he started bleeding. His face turned deathly pale. Arg! There was another explosion. And Gu Tian had the sensation he was losing it, his soul was tearing apart. He wanted to leave his body with his soul. The sky turned silver. He tried to retreat, and finally jumped off the pillar. Everybody was staring at Chu Chunxiu, their hearts pounding excitedly. Chu Chunxiu was terrifyingly strong. Gu Tian was the 7th cultivator in the ranking list, and he had just suffered a crushing defeat. Gu Tian couldn't believe it. He had never been that scared. He was afraid of Chu Chunxiu now. Chu Chunxiu rolled up his sleeves and jumped up onto his pillar. Gu Tian was staring at him, his face stiff. Chu Chunxiu is so strong, thought Lin Feng with a sigh. He had the premonition many things were going to change during this event. Chu Chunxiu was always discreet, but he was as strong as an ancient emperor, and had King Qi. He was going to become a hero and rise today. Ying Cheng and Ji Chang were shocked too. They could barely understand that he had just risen up to the 7th position. What would their position be at the end of the event? Lin Feng was also downgraded to the 9th rank. Xiaoyu, Jin Xingzi, and Wang Zhong were now under him in the list. Jin Xingzi and Wang Zhong were now 11th and 12th. Wang Zhong and Jin Xingzi looked at the cultivators who were above them in the list, and took a deep breath. They were all extremely strong. And now that Lin Feng and Chu Chunxiu had risen up in the list, would anyone below them challenge them? Especially Chu Chunxiu. Nobody would dare challenge him. At this moment the top 10 were Ying Chun, Ji Chang, Gili the Buddhist warrior, Shi Yunfeng, Xue Shenfeng, Chu Chunxiu, Gu Tian, Lin Feng and Xiaoyu. They were all terrifyingly strong. Jin Xingzi and Wang Zhong felt the pressure. Finally, Wang Zhong took a step forwards. He had to challenge someone. Chapter 1955. The top 10. Wang Zhong looked at the 10 cultivators. He didn't even consider challenging the cultivators of the top 5. Ying Cheng and Ji Chang were too strong. Both were champions. Gili was too evil and knew the Ghost Sutra. The Stone Man, Shi Yunfeng, was incredibly strong. Xue Shenfeng was from the Snow Clan, and Wang Zhong knew he couldn't defeat him. Chu Chunxiu was also too strong, so he could only choose among 3 people: Gu Tian, Lin Feng and Xiaoyu. The audience was astonished at all this, and kept gasping with amazement. These people were the strongest cultivators of the holy city, among the people of the Huangqi layer. True geniuses. If they offended any of them, they'd die. Lin Feng had defeated Xiaoyu, so he didn't want to challenge Lin Feng for now. He didn't have many choices. He looked at Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu looked back at him icily, turning furious. Wang Zhong wanted to fight against him? Lin Feng had already defeated him today. What is this supposed to mean? Said Xiaoyu icily. Wang Zhong chopped out with his palm, and many armors appeared in the sky, all of them dazzling. Evil corrosion! Shouted Xiaoyu furiously. A furious dragon made of corrosive evil strength flew towards Wang Zhong, and the air above him turned into a black hole. 10,000 armors lights! Shouted Wang Zhong extremely loudly. The armors twinkled, and turned into a curtain which blotted out the sky. The dragon made of corrosive evil strength turned into many threats of energies, and moved towards him. Destroy! Shouted Wang Zhong icily. The armors became even more dazzling, and the corrosive evil strength completely disappeared. Die! Wang Zhong waved his hands. The armors moved towards Xiaoyu. One of the armors turned into a gigantic axe containing a terrifying earth strength. At the same time, the armors became even more dazzling, and the space around them started to distort. Is that Dao strength? Lin Feng was standing on the pillar next to Xiaoyu's pillar, his eyes twinkling. He watched Wang Zhong's attacks carefully. Wang Zhong was from the noble Fang Tian clan. They were defense adepts. It was a very particular clan, a bit like the World Clan, as they controlled a special kind of strength. The World Clan controlled world strength, and the noble Fang Tian clan controlled armor strength. Lin Feng had never seen armor strength before or armor techniques. How powerful! Xiaoyu was in danger. He was going to be defeated quickly, even if his corrosive strength was powerful. The battle was cruel and intense. Armor strength and corrosive evil strength kept colliding. Wang Zhong was gaining the advantage step by step, getting closer and closer to Xiaoyu. Finally, His 10,000 armors exploded and Xiaoyu was driven away. He was forced to give up his 10th position. Jin Xingzi moved down to the 12th pillar. How humiliating. He kept looking at Yin Tian icily. The Huangjin clan and the Yin clan were rivals. One clan controlling gold energy, the other one silver energy. So naturally Jin Xingzi and Yin Tian were rivals. Jin Xingzi then jumped towards Yin Tian's pillar. Yin Tian was furious. Chu Chunxiu had already humiliated him, so he had to regain his reputation. He couldn't lose against Jin Xingzi. Dazzling golden lights collided with the dazzling silver lights. The Huangjin clan controlled gold Dao. Everything they touched could turn into gold, and their energies were destructive. Yin Tian's Dao was very similar to Jin Xingzi's Dao. Their battle was even more intense than Wang Zhong and Xiaoyu's battle. Jin Xingzi ended up at the top of the pillar fighting against Yin Tian. One of Yin Tian's arms became golden and exploded. Jin Xingzi suffered too. Half of his body had become silver, and the silver strength was eating away at his body. Gold intent and silver intent were both dangerous. Jin Xingzi, leave, go and learn about cultivation, spat Yin Tian. His eyes were silver and dazzling. It seemed he could turn anyone to silver if they looked at him. Even though Chu Chunxiu oppressed Yin Tian is really strong. The Yin clan and the Huangjin clan are rivals. Yin Tian was ranked better than Jin Xingzi. The Great Imperial Palace was right. Yin Tian is stronger than Jin Xingzi, was the admiring consensus of the audience. I would have never thought I'd be out of the top 10, Jin Xingzi sighed. He looked sad and disappointed. He initially wanted to try and rise up, but in the end, he ended up in the 12th position. On the path of cultivation, if you don't progress quickly enough, you fall behind, and then at some point you can never catch up, thought the crowd, sighing with empathy for Jin Xingzi. He was strong, but the others were stronger than him. Chu Chunxiu had been in the holy city for a short time, but he could already defeat Yin Tian. Many people believed he had the potential to end up in the top 5. Lin Feng used to be a nobody, and then he had become famous because he had fought against Ji Chang on the day of his champion ceremony. Lin Feng was the only medium-level emperor in the top 10 at that moment. He was definitely talented. Jin Xingzi was 12th and injured now. He couldn't possibly defeat anyone else in the top 10. Xiaoyu had fallen behind in the ranking because he had been defeated, but he still had an opportunity to rise back up. But the crowd didn't think he would manage to rise again. Lin Feng and Wang Zhong were 9th and 10th respectively. It would be very difficult to defeat them. Yin Tian was also stronger than he was. Xiaoyu couldn't defeat Chu Chunxiu and the others, that was certain. Finally, Xiaoyu decided to fight against Yin Tian, who was 8th in the ranking. Yin Tian's left arm had been broken after it was turned to gold. When Xiaoyu chose to fight against Yin Tian, the audience sighed. He didn't deserve to be in the top 10. Challenging someone injured proved he was a coward. He wasn't determined enough. And the most ridiculous part was that even against the wounded Yin Tian, Xiaoyu lost. Now he was 11th, and wouldn't be able to reach the top 10. The top 10 was already fixed. The temporary ranking was Ing Cheng Ji Chang Gili, the Buddhist warrior, Shi Yunfeng, Shueshen Feng, Chu Chunxiu, Yin Tian, Lin Feng and Wang Zhong. Jin Xingzi and Xiaoyu had been defeated and weren't in the top 10. Everybody looked at the golden ranking list. Those 10 geniuses were incredible. What would the final ranking look like? Yin Tian was injured. He was probably going to be 8th, 9th or 10th. Lin Feng was really strong, but his cultivation level was lower than everybody else. He couldn't defeat Shueshen Feng or the Stone Man. He was probably going to end up in 8th, 9th or 10th position too. Chu Chunxiu was incredibly strong. He was definitely going to end up in the top 10. At least, that's what the crowd thought. All those fighters were enigmatic and unfathomable though. None of them had used their full strength yet. The following battles would be more serious. At that moment, Pei Donglai studied the 10 cultivators. Back then, he was also in the top 10. He remembered his Pathfinder day, but now it was a new generation. These people were also incredible. Now I'm going to call people from the top 10. You'll have the opportunity to fight thrice. If you give up once, It means you agree to give up a position. If you give up 3 times, your position won't change anymore, Pei Donglai said slowly. He looked at Wang Zhong and said, Wang Zhong, will you fight against Gili? Wang Zhong frowned. Then Pei Donglai continued. If you do and defeat him, you'll replace him. If you lose, you'll still be in the top 10. If you give up, I'll give you 2 more opportunities. People's eyes twinkled. The rules were cruel. If Wang Zhong accepted to fight and lost, he'd rank 10th. If he didn't fight, he'd have the opportunity to fight against someone under Gili in the ranking list. If you don't fight this time, you won't have the opportunity to fight someone higher than Gili in the ranking list, Pei Donglai said calmly. Wang Zhong didn't know what to think. Gili was 3rd in the rankings. Chapter 1956. Celestial Stage Deployment Spell. I give up, said Wang Zhong finally. Gili was the 3rd cultivator, and extremely strong. Nobody had managed to dethrone him from the 3rd position. Wang Zhong was aware that there was a huge cultivation level difference between them. All right, your second chance is Chu Chunqiu. Will you fight against him? Asked Pei Donglai. Wang Zhong was petrified and pulled a long face. Chu Chunqiu was currently the 7th cultivator. Everybody had just been stunned by his strength. Pei Donglai is sly. That's tough for Wang Zhong, muttered the audience. Wang Zhong sighed. It seemed that he would only be able to rank 8th, 9th or 10th. But it didn't matter anymore. Being in the top 10 was already great after all. Of course, if he managed to rank 8th or 9th, it'd be better than 10th. He refused to fight again. All right, last opportunity, Lin Feng, Pei Donglai said calmly. Wang Zhong took a deep breath and nodded. He looked at Lin Feng, who was the 9th cultivator. If he managed to win against Lin Feng, maybe he would have the opportunity to rank 8th later on? Lin Feng's eyes glittered. He glanced at Pei Donglai and jumped off his pillar, landing in the center of the battle stage. Wang Zhong also landed in front of him. Noble Fangtian clan. Wang Zhong. I am walking on the path of armor defense. I control armor strength. I can create armors and attack with them. Wang Zhong said to Lin Feng politely. Path of life and death. I control life and death strength, replied Lin Feng calmly. Many armors appeared around Wang Zhong. They were dazzling, and they were twinkling marks on them. Lin Feng studied the mysterious strength of the noble Fangtian clan. We'll see if my life or death is in your hands, said Wang Zhong evenly. He waved his hands, and the armors flickered and moved towards Lin Feng. They turned into light beams as sharp as swords and moved deceptively fast. Lin Feng flashed forwards, his life and death pattern appearing and transforming. Dazzling lights appeared in Lin Feng's 3rd eye. At the same time, he struck out with both hands. Earth and demon cosmic energies condensed and turned into a shattering deployment spell. The marks it contained were perfect. Deployment spell. 2 deployment spells appeared under Lin Feng's feet, their marks intertwining. The life and death pattern, and his deployment spell condensed. Those watching were astonished. Lin Feng was really an expert at casting deployment spells. He could condense deployment spells within a few seconds, and he used his godly awareness to transform them. Deployment spell casters were legendary, their power deep and potentially explosive. Even though Lin Feng couldn't cast deployment spells instantly, he had been practicing for many years, and he had also studied the Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures. With his physical strength and shattering deployment spell, the armors broke instantly. Wang Zhong didn't stop moving though. More armor lights moved towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng noticed that the armors contained the strength of different weapons such as blades, swords, axes, halberds, maces, or staves. It felt like those weapons wanted to strike out of the armors. Go! Ordered Wang Zhong, waving his hands. The armor shot through the air in Lin Feng's direction and transformed into genuine weapons. The number of weapons blotted out the sky. Lin Feng grunted icily, stamping down his deployment spell. The air rumbled as a gigantic ancient imprint appeared and slammed down. All the weapons vanished when they collided with the ancient imprint. At the same time, the life and death pattern became even more terrifying as it arrived in front of Wang Zhong. Wang Zhong was startled, and a golden armor appeared around him. He started walking slowly towards Lin Feng, his armor floating around him. His defense is incredible, thought the crowd when they saw that. Wang Zhong was, after all, an expert at defense. Lin Feng still looked calm and unruffled as he also started towards Wang Zhong. His death energy turned into a river and flowed towards Wang Zhong, and his eyes were also filled with death intent. Wang Zhong felt as if that death intent was going to pierce through his eyes. Wang Zhong waved his hand, and another armor appeared and transformed. Golden lights appeared in front of him and prevented the river made of death energy from reaching him. Lin Feng continued moving forwards, and each time he made a step, his shattering lights transformed. Dazzling Devamara Kulpa strength started rotating around Lin Feng's body and began to condense. What a powerful qi! Lin Feng definitely belongs in the top 10. That's incredible. He understands Dao strength, but he's also an incredible fighter, thought the crowd. Wang Zhong was bathing in golden lights. Lin Feng was surrounded by demon lights and looked like an ancient demon god. Lin Feng's deployment spell kept transforming. Waves of multiple energies pulsed all around him. He's condensing force. Wang Zhong is also condensing force. If he releases his armor, it's going to explode. The watchers deduced. The two cultivators were slowly walking towards each other, their demon and golden lights already colliding. Energies kept flaring, and the watchers couldn't even open their eyes anymore because of the lights. How explosive will my attack be if my celestial stage deployment spell and my shattering deployment spell fused together? Whispered Lin Feng. He condensed his demon Kulpa strength, which then fused together with his shattering deployment marks. It clearly became more explosive. The lights illuminated the whole area and emitted whistling sounds as they cut the air. It was like a celestial stage had appeared in front of Lin Feng. It had 9 levels, and each level had more terrifying demon lights than the previous one. Such beautiful deployment lights. The watchers gasped when they saw the soaring lights. The celestial stage deployment spell was one of the 3,000 deployment spells. Lin Feng only understood a few of them. The celestial stage deployment spell was a good deployment spell because it helped him improve his fighting and understanding abilities. It was excellent at helping attacks fuse together. Each of the 9 levels of the celestial stage deployment spell was more explosive than the previous one. When Wang Zhong saw that, he shouted furiously. He waved his hands. Armor lights sang and shot towards Lin Feng. There were beautiful lights everywhere around both of them. However, within those resplendent and beautiful lights there were also demon lights. They looked like dazzling yet terrifying stars, brilliant points of destruction. But there were so many lights that the crowd couldn't see them clearly. They could only hear the rumbling and whistling sounds. Explosions thundered out, and Wang Zhong's armor shattered. The destructive lights pierced through his armor, reached him and smashed him away. He coughed out blood and crashed onto a pillar, heavily wounded. I won't need the life and death deployment spell in the air, mused Lin Feng. He recalled his life and death strength, and his life and death pattern dispersed. Wang Zhong's face was deathly pale as he stared at Lin Feng. They were there to exchange views on the Dao, and in the end, he hadn't even seen Lin Feng's life and death path. He could only rank 10th. You want to continue fighting? Lin Feng asked Wang Zhong. No need. You're too strong. You'll probably continue rising, sighed Wang Zhong. His dual deployment spells were just too terrifying and explosive. Maybe that Ji Chang's destructive Dao, Ying Cheng's chaotic sky Dao, or the Stone Man's stone transformation Dao could destroy Lin Feng's Dao. But Wang Zhong couldn't. Wang Zhong and Lin Feng went back to their pillars. Wang Zhong's name on the imperial ranking list lit up. It wouldn't change anymore. He was the 10th cultivator. Chapter 1957. Disdainful Lin Feng won against Wang Zhong, which means he'll rank 9th in the worst case. He can still rise up. The audience observed. Pei Donglai looked at Lin Feng, who looked rather pensive. 3 opportunities he could propose Ying Cheng, Ji Chang and Gili. If Lin Feng lost or refused to fight 3 times, he'd rank 9th. Lin Feng had to be careful. I hope you can defeat Yin Gutian, thought Pei Donglai. If Lin Feng defeated Yin Gutian, the Ying clan would take care of him. No matter who the winner would be, it was going to be interesting. Lin Feng, your first opportunity Yin Gutian. You can accept or refuse. Same rules, said Pei Donglai. The crowd was startled. That choice was strange. Yin Gutian was just above Lin Feng in the ranking. That way if he accepted, he'd have to continue fighting. But if he didn't, he'd be stuck in the 9th position. Lin Feng looked at Pei Donglai strangely. He jumped back to the center of the battle stage. Yin Gutian also came out slowly. He looked at Lin Feng with his silver eyes. And silver lights appeared all around him at the same time. You're already injured. You can give up. I don't want to hurt you, Lin Feng said to Yin Gutian calmly. However, Yin Gutian merely looked at him icily. Empty words, said Yin Gutian grimly. More and more silver dazzling lights rose up in the air and condensed, shooting towards Lin Feng. Even before touching Lin Feng's skin, he could sense how intense and ice-cold they were. What's the point? Lin Feng asked indifferently. His life and death pattern appeared. And as he waved his hand, the pattern became gigantic and moved towards the silver lights. Die! Shouted Yin Gutian. His silver lights turned into silver spears and lunged towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng raised his hands. Golden lights appeared and intertwined. His empty space cosmic energies filled the air. Go! Lin Feng waved his hands again, and his golden pattern flickered. The silver spears collided with the golden pattern. Lights flashed, and looked like the spears had landed in another world. They just disappeared, as if they had been absorbed by Lin Feng's energy. A deployment spell again. Even though Lin Feng's cultivation level is low, he's not weaker than most people in the top 10 thanks to his deployment spells. His deployment spell and Dao power are both incredibly powerful. The audience was delighted. Lin Feng had proved that he could use several sorts of deployment spells, and they were all very mysterious. He had an advanced knowledge of deployment spells. The silver lights and the life and death pattern kept colliding. The silver lights surrounded the life and death pattern. However, Lin Feng took a step forwards and his river of death energy started flowing out, spinning into abyssal whirlpools. Waves died on a million shores, and the whirlpools made of death energy spun towards Yin Gutian. Yin Gutian grunted calmly. He slapped out, his silver lights turning into a celestial curtain. The vortices made of death energy condensed and stopped moving. It was spectacular and beautiful to see. Suddenly, a strong wind full of empty space cosmic energies swept by. The cosmic energies condensed as a dazzling light appeared in Lin Feng's third eye. He's casting deployment spells with his mind, someone in the audience blurted out. He was using the empty space cosmic energies of the earth and sky, and mentally turning them into deployment marks. It was unbelievable. According to legends, some legendary cultivators can cast deployment spells instantly using their mind. It seems that Lin Feng is walking on that path. Lin Feng wasn't able to use the cosmic energies of the earth and sky at one point, so he couldn't communicate with the cosmic energies of the earth and sky. So of course, he couldn't use them to cast deployment spells either. Then he was cleansed by the cosmic energies of the earth and sky, so he also learned how to control them. And then he used his celestial evolution holy scriptures to improve them further. He couldn't mentally cast extremely complex deployment spells, but easy ones were not a problem at all. At the same time, golden lights shone everywhere. It was a simple empty space deployment spell connected to the golden lights. You can't defeat me. Just give up, stated Lin Feng, raising his fist. Dark lights appeared in his fist. He didn't fear Yin Gutian at all. Yin Gutian looked back at Lin Feng icily. Lin Feng was looking at him disdainfully. How humiliating. Yin Gutian disappeared, turning into a silver light beam shooting towards Lin Feng with a sonic boom. As he closed in on Lin Feng, the silver lights started corroding Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng raised his hands. His river made of death energy reappeared and swept towards Yin Gutian with a crashing of the yellow springs. At the same time, Lin Feng jumped into his empty space deployment lights and disappeared, reappearing on Yin Gutian's left. His river made of death energy moaned the last breaths of the drowned and rolled towards Yin Gutian. Lin Feng didn't stop moving and continued casting deployment spells as he flashed away. The watcher saw the river made of death energy sweep towards and over Yin Gutian, and he disappeared inside it. Those watching were astonished. Lin Feng could cast deployment spells that easily? Each time Lin Feng fought, they discovered something new about him. Gu Tian was in the top 10 of the imperial ranking list. He wasn't weak, but the river made of death energy had also surrounded the silver lights. Lin Feng threw himself inside the death river. Dazzling lights illuminated the atmosphere again. It sounded like the earth and sky had been collapsing. The crowd heard rumbling and explosions. Just before they saw Gu Tian hurled out of the death river haplessly, to crash onto the battle stage. He managed to struggle up to his knees. He was soaked with blood. Lin Feng was in the air above him, and looking down at him disdainfully. What an incredible physical strength! Gu Tian was petrified. His cultivation level was higher than Lin Feng's. Why didn't he have the advantage? Lin Feng's attacks were too brutal, and his physical strength was terrifying. What was the point? Said Lin Feng indifferently. Gu Tian's Dao intent wasn't powerful enough. He couldn't pose a threat to Lin Feng. Ji Chang could still pose a threat to Lin Feng though. Only a few people in the top 10 could pose a threat to Lin Feng. And they were at the top. Gu Tian was in the top 10. But there was a huge difference between him and those at the top of the ranking list. Lin Feng could easily kill those at the bottom of the top 10. Those at the bottom of the top 10 were considered geniuses and extremely strong cultivators by ordinary people. But to Lin Feng, they weren't. Lin Feng went back to the 8th pillar, the pillar on which Gu Tian was standing just before. Gu Tian slowly stood up, feeling humiliated. He glanced back at the cultivators of the Yin clan. He remembered when Lin Feng was at the Yin clan. Gu Tian had looked at Lin Feng in disdain. Now Lin Feng was looking at him disdainfully. To Lin Feng, Gu Tian was a nobody. Chapter 1958. Chu Chunqiu vs. Gili. Lin Feng and Gu Tian had gone back to their respective pillars. Pei Donglai looked at Gu Tian and said, "You lost, but if Lin Feng continues rising, you may have the opportunity to fight against the people who will stand between you and him." Gu Tian remained silent. He had nothing to say. He had lost against Chu Chunqiu, and now he had lost against Lin Feng. He was furious. Even if Lin Feng continued rising, would Gu Tian be able to fight against those between him and Lin Feng? He was in the 9th position at that moment. It seemed he wouldn't rise anymore. This time, he hadn't risen in the ranking list. It was just the opposite, he was falling behind. At that moment, the members of the Yin clan looked at the ranking list. Yin Rui looked furious. Before the beginning of the event, he had recommended Gu Tian to Ren Tianxing to help him enter the great imperial palace. Now that Gu Tian had failed miserably, Ren Tianxing had nothing good to think about Gu Tian. Yu clenched her small fists. Her face was a bit pale. Now that Lin Feng had defeated Gu Tian, she would never be able to marry Lin Wuxiang. Grandpa, Lin Feng is extremely talented and strong. He's only a medium-level emperor, and he already understands Dao strength. He also controls deployment spells at a very high level. He'll definitely become a champion someday. Yu whispered to Yin Rui. Yin Rui looked back at her icily. He's talented. He made a great show of his talents. But now everybody knows how strong he really is. That's not so good. We'll see how far he can go. Pei Donglai looked over at Chu Chunqiu. Everyone watching closely. Chu Chunqiu was extremely strong, but the crowd really wanted to know how strong he could really be. What challenge would Pei Donglai propose? If Pei Donglai asked Chu Chunqiu if he wanted to fight against Ding Cheng or Ji Chang, would Chu Chunqiu refuse? If Chu Chunqiu fought against them and lost, maybe the ranking list wouldn't change anymore. Pei Donglai looked at the list and at Chu Chunqiu again before saying, "I think you'll be happy. My first proposition is Gili. Will you fight against him?" Third cultivator on the imperial ranking list, Gili. The crowd frowned. If Chu Chunqiu accepted, the battle would be amazing. Chu Chunqiu's robe fluttered. He jumped forwards without hesitation. The crowd was very excited. Chu Chunqiu had accepted the challenge. Gili was terrifyingly strong. He had astonished everyone when knocking the great imperial bell, killing many people. An evil wind started blowing. Gili jumped off his pillar. He looked extremely light and frail like a ghost. I've heard that you had studied two mysterious sets of ancient scriptures, the sky-absorbing scriptures, and the celestial evolution holy scriptures. I've heard that the Chu clan in the vast celestial ancient city considers you as the second king of the Chu clan. I wonder how strong you are. I hope you won't disappoint me, whispered Geely. His face was still as pale as a ghost, and his sibilant voice sounded evil. The type of cultivation a person practiced influenced their personality, and since he had studied the Ghost Sutra, he had become evil. You'll see, said Chu Chunxiu, releasing sky-absorbing intent. The terrifying sky-absorbing strength condensed and turned into a strong wind. The people on the pillars sighed. Chu Chunxiu's Dao intent was already far more powerful than Yin Gu Tian's. They definitely couldn't be mentioned on equal terms. Sky-absorbing Dao. The Chu clan raised you with ancient imperial intent. I wonder how many emperors' wills you've absorbed, mused Geely icily. A ghost started wailing, and more of them appeared in the sky and moved towards Chu Chunxiu. Chu Chunxiu suddenly saw ghosts in his mind. Dao intent competition. The crowd frowned. They had seen Geely knock the great imperial bell. They had sensed his Dao. His ghosts could appear in people's minds suddenly and destroy people's souls instantly. Geely and Chu Chunxiu's battle already looked dangerous. As the crowd had expected, Chu Chunxiu was already fighting inside his head. His third eye started flashing. A dazzling light beam appeared. He felt dizzy. He released intent, which dashed to the skies. A terrifying ancient imperial vitality intent moved towards Geely, unavoidably fast. Chu Chunxiu then shouted, "One should return as good as one receives." The two cultivators remained motionless in the sky. A pitch-black cloud emerged from Geely's body. Ghosts kept appearing, bearing fangs and brandishing claws. When the audience saw the ghosts, they shuddered with dread. At that moment, a silhouette appeared near Chu Chunxiu. The silhouette was 3 zhang tall, and looked like a terrifying king spirit. Thick sky-absorbing Dao intent around it. It could absorb anything. Ancient king spirit, formed using intent. That's his Dao. The audience shook, and had to resist the urge to prostrate themselves. Lin Feng watched carefully. The battle wasn't explosive, but he knew that those two people were infinitely stronger than Yin Gu Tian. Is Chu Chunxiu really talented though? He has the sky-absorbing scriptures, and the celestial evolution holy scriptures. And he's been raised using willpower. But those are resources. Lang Yi and Duga the winner have access to great resources too. They can't fully exploit their king bodies yet, but they'll become stronger with time. But Chu Chunxiu progressed faster than Lang Yi, who has a world king body, and Duga the winner, who has a godly imprint king body. Does he have a mysterious body type? Wondered Lin Feng. Chu Chunxiu had progressed really quickly. Maybe he really was that talented. He had progressed even faster than Lin Feng. Lin Feng was impressed. A silhouette also appeared in Geely's mind and emerged from his body. It was a terrifying Yaksa ghost king, his chi awe-inspiring. He was holding a terrifying scepter as he ran forwards. Chu Chunxiu's ancient king and the Yaksa ghost king collided, and the earth and sky shook at their meeting. Sky-absorbing strength pulsed out, but the ghost chi didn't disappear. How strong! The crowd was just too stunned after each attack. They would never forget this battle of spirits. Amid rumbles and explosions, the Yaksa ghost king's body cracked. Chu Chunxiu's ancient king also exploded. He had lost his lower body. However, he opened his mouth and absorbed air, including the chi of the ghost king. The ancient king continued towards Geely, starting to absorb Geely's willpower. Geely's face somehow turned even paler as he shouted furiously. Lights flew back to his head, and he ran away. "Come back!" shouted Chu Chunxiu icily. His ancient king slowly stopped and disappeared. Chu Chunxiu was furious. He looked like the ancient king he had just released, appearing even taller and more imposing than before. Chu Chunxiu had won the battle. He had defeated the third cultivator, Geely. "You didn't disappoint me," said Geely icily. "I hope that you continue progressing at that pace, otherwise, I will kill you." Geely moved to the fourth pillar. The Buddhist warrior also moved down. Chu Chunxiu was now the third cultivator. Chapter 1959. Incredible battle for the imperial ranking list. The crowd sighed. What an incredible battle! They weren't disappointed in either fighter. The battles were beautiful, and Chu Chunxiu was now the third cultivator. Now the top 10 of the imperial ranking list was Ying Cheng Jichang, Chu Chunxiu Gili the Buddhist warrior, Shi Yunfeng, Xue Shenfeng, Lin Feng, Ying Gutian Wang Zhong. Lin Feng had won twice. Wang Zhong couldn't progress anymore because he had lost. Ying Gutian had been defeated, but couldn't challenge anyone for the time being, unless Lin Feng continued rising in the list. He couldn't challenge people who were above Lin Feng in the ranking list, and the same applied to Gili. If Chu Chunxiu didn't rise in the list, then Gili wouldn't be able to challenge Jichang and Yingcheng. After that, it was Xue Shenfeng's turn. There were fewer and fewer people to challenge at that level. Pei Donglai looked at Xue Shenfeng and said, "Do you accept to fight against Jichang?" Xue Shenfeng frowned. Jichang. If he lost, he wouldn't be able to continue rising. He would be stuck in his current position, and other people would have the opportunity to challenge him. But if he refused, the Snow Clan would be furious, even if he became a champion someday. He had to fight. Xue Shenfeng jumped out and released ice and frost chi, snowflakes appearing all around him as the temperature plummeted. Many people in the audience started shivering as a layer of ice appeared on their hair. Jichang also jumped out. He was surrounded by destructive intent. When the snowflakes fell onto him, they were destroyed. A snowy silhouette appeared behind Xue Shenfeng, looking like an ancient king of the Snow Clan. The air grew even colder. In response, 9 cyan dragon totems appeared behind Jichang, increasing in size quickly. King Qi kept emerging from Jichang's body, and his eyes were filled with destructive strength threatening to collapse the earth and sky. Jichang jumped forwards, the cyan dragon pulling a royal wagon behind him. Xue Shenfeng didn't flinch. He continued running forwards, releasing ice-cold energies which blotted out the sky, turning everything into an icy world. Suddenly, many Xue Shenfeng's silhouettes appeared everywhere as ice chi surrounded Jichang. It looked like he had ended up in an icy cage, but his king chi remained and didn't break. Dazzling cyan dragon lights glittered all around him. Nothing could get close to him. Xue Shenfeng waved his hands. Jichang raised his. The frozen air cracked in protest as more destructive energy appeared. Many snow blades appeared around Shenfeng and shot towards Jichang. Xue Shenfeng also threw himself at Jichang. Jichang's Dao is better than Xue Shenfeng. Xue Shenfeng is going to lose, thought Lin Feng. He had said destructive Dao was crappy at the Ji clan. But of course it was just an exaggeration. He just wanted to humiliate them. He knew it was extremely powerful. Unless a cultivator had a better understanding of Dao power than Jichang, it would be difficult to defeat him. There were some Dao powers which destructive Dao couldn't destroy that easily, however, such as Jianmeng's light Dao or Aoshu's aggressive Dao. Jichang and Xue Shenfeng were getting closer and closer to each other, and started fighting in close combat. Xue Shenfeng knew many spells, but Jichang's destructive Dao could destroy almost anything. He looked motionless and indestructible like a mountain. Jichang was abruptly surrounded by a layer of ice. The watchers all frowned, wondering what was going on. Xue Shenfeng's eyes. They noticed that Xue Shenfeng's eyes had changed, turning into ice. Xue Shenfeng moved forwards, and a terrifying kind of strength crashed onto Jichang's body. Everything started freezing around him. The crowd was astonished. What was going to happen? The ice around Jichang's body condensed, and he turned into a frozen statue. However, the 9 cyan dragon totems struggled, and suddenly destructive strength exploded out. Crackling sounds rose, and the statue shattered. The dragons merged into one and flew toward Xue Shenfeng, explosions destroying the ice floating in the air. Multiple Xue Shenfeng silhouettes appeared again, but the dragon destroyed them. Crackling sounds spread through the freezing air, and the dragon started freezing for a moment, before breaking that ice too. The dragon roared and a silhouette emerged from his mouth, the furious Jichang. He instantly punched out towards Xue Shenfeng's head. Xue Shenfeng's soul was shaking violently before he was smashed away, hard. He landed on the stage, his white hair all messed up. Jichang went back to the second pillar. Xue Shenfeng's soul was injured, and he had to rest for a few seconds before he went back to the 7th pillar. More of the 10 were stuck in their current positions. Lin Feng and Ying Gutian could still rise. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled thoughtfully. Chu Chunxiu and Gili's battle had been terrifying. Chu Chunxiu could absorb people's willpower with his ancient king. Gili could also release a Yaksa ghost king. Now a silhouette had emerged out of Ji Chang's body and injured Xue Shenfeng's soul. Xue Shenfeng couldn't even fight anymore, he had to heal. Understanding Soul Dao. Lin Feng sat down cross-legged and turned into 2 clones. The crowd was startled to see that Lin Feng knew a cloning technique. His actual body was seated cross-legged, and his clone was studying something else. Pei Donglai looked at Shi Yunfeng, the 6th cultivator. The pressure was getting worse. The 5 cultivators above Shi Yunfeng in the ranking list were terrifying and extremely strong. There were 2 champions, but Chu Chunxiu and Gili were terrifying too. And there was the Buddhist warrior as well. Shi Yunfeng, you want to fight against Ding Cheng? Asked Pei Donglai. Shi Yunfeng's eyes twinkled and said, let me fight against the Buddhist warrior. If I win, I'll be able to continue competing. If I lose, I won't be able to rise anymore. All right, I'll do as you wish, nodded Pei Donglai. This was his second opportunity. Maybe after this battle, he wouldn't rise anymore. Shi Yunfeng and the Buddhist warrior's battle didn't disappoint the crowd. The Buddhist warrior was from ancient university and the Canaan Buddhist clan. His attacks were mighty, as he understood the holy Buddhist Tao. He could release Buddhist illusions which empowered him, making him much stronger. Shi Yunfeng was also a terrifying cultivator. He knew stone spells, both offensive and defensive, and could also bury his opponents, while being strong enough to break their bones. In the end, even the Buddhist warrior's defense was broken by Shi Yunfeng's attacks. The battle lasted for an hour before it ended, the Buddhist warrior winning in the end. Shi Yunfeng didn't look disappointed at all. He'd had a lot of fun, even though he wouldn't be able to rise anymore. Only Lin Feng and Ying Gutian seemed like they could rise. However, people believed that Ying Gutian couldn't progress anymore. He couldn't compete with Shi Yunfeng and the Buddhist warrior. They also thought that Lin Feng wouldn't rise anymore. He probably couldn't defeat Xue Shenfeng. The crowd thought that the cultivators' positions were all fixed now. Chapter 1960. Soon going to become a great emperor. 3 people's positions are already fixed for sure. Shi Yunfeng, Xue Shenfeng, Lin Feng, Ying Gutian, and Wang Zheng should stay in the second half of the top 10. Ying Cheng Jichang, Chu Chunxiu, Gili and the Buddhist warrior will probably stay in the top 5. The only one who could rise is Chu Chunxiu. Then Shi Yunfeng would rank 5th. Was the general opinion of the audience. They all thought the Buddhist warrior couldn't defeat Gili no matter what. Chu Chunxiu might be able to defeat Jichang or Ying Cheng. Buddhist warrior, it's your turn, said Pei Donglai. The Buddhist warrior could choose his opponent since he was in the top 5. Gili, said the Buddhist warrior, clenching his fists. He sounded calm and composed. As the crowd had expected, Chu Chunxiu had defeated Gili, so he was probably harder to defeat. Gili was the best choice. If the Buddhist warrior managed to defeat him, then he'd be able to try again. If he lost, then he wouldn't be able to, but it didn't matter because he wouldn't be able to defeat Chu Chunxiu, Ying Cheng, or Jichang anyway. Gili had been in 3rd position for many years. The top 3 cultivators weren't easy to dethrone. Therefore, the Buddhist warrior chose Gili. The Buddhist warrior Dozhan Seng is from a Buddhist clan. He knows Buddhist attacks. Gili knows the Ghost Sutra and controls ghost spells. Their cultivation types are completely antagonist. The audience was expecting a good show. The 2 fighters were already on the battle stage. A loud wailing spread out as ghosts appeared, while brilliant lights rose to illuminate all. If the great imperial palace's people hadn't used a special kind of power to stop those energies from spilling over, the 2 fighters' energies would have invaded a much wider territory. A strange shrieking spread out. Black lights invaded the atmosphere and blotted out the sky, deadly and ice-cold. It was as if hell had appeared. Lin Feng's clone was watching the battle and sensed their Tao strength. But Lin Feng perfectly understood that he couldn't assess their strength by just watching. He had to fight to understand someone properly. Lin Feng's real body was still seated on the pillar, his eyes closed and qi emerging from his third eye. He was condensing life and death intent. He remembered a few battles. Chu Chunxiu had summoned a proud-looking 3-zhangtal ancient king, creating that ancient king, using the will he had absorbed from past victims. Of course, he also had to use his soul strength. Gili and Ji Chong were different from Chu Chunxiu, but they had similar kinds of strength. Lin Feng was walking on the path of life and death. His soul was growing stronger and stronger. He could also create an ancient king using his soul strength if he wanted. At that moment, in Lin Feng's mind, there were many dazzling lights that kept transforming. Gradually, a gigantic demon appeared in Lin Feng's mind, a demon king. It was the demon he had seen back then in the bronze mirror. He looked proud, aggressive, and brutal. He was robed in darkness, a prince of darkness. "That's the form," whispered the demon. He stretched out his hand, and a gigantic death sword appeared. "Gigantic black sword, gigantic death sword," murmured the demon king. It was his former sword spirit. "Something is missing in my left hand," thought Lin Feng. He stretched out his hand and condensed a black flame, which turned into a demon lotus. He could condense a demon lotus with death fire. Lin Feng had studied the celestial evolution holy scriptures, and was much more creative. Of course, this was only the first step. He didn't know if he could summon this demon to help him battle. Dozhan Sung and Gili continued battling like madmen. Gili used his ghost spells, his attacks very powerful. Ghosts kept wailing and clawing at everything, demonic and evil. At the same time, he used Dao intent and his soul strength to corrode his enemy's soul. At this moment, the two cultivators stopped moving, but a demonic ghost moved towards Dozhan Sung. Dozhan Sung was seated cross-legged in the air, like a Buddha. Millions of Buddhas appeared around him. Golden energies moved towards Gili, but first collided with the demonic ghosts. Buddha's halo illuminate all things and is purifying. Buddha's lights filled the air, and the black light slowly dispersed. People raised their heads and looked at the Buddhas in awe. Dozhan Sung was a really terrifying warrior. It was even getting dangerous for Gili. Was he going to fall in the rankings? Gili released more qi. He wanted to destroy Buddha's halo, but he couldn't, and in the end, he was bombarded by the Buddha's halo. Gili, third cultivator on the imperial ranking list, had lost twice. He was now fifth. Everybody was astonished, stunned. Nobody could believe it. Dozhan Sung had won twice. He had defeated both Shi Yinfeng and Gili. The audience was astonished. Now Dozhan Sung was fourth, and in the top three, there were Ying Cheng, Ji Chong, and Chu Chunxiu. Chu Chunxiu, don't fight for now, let Ji Chong fight first. What do you think? Pei Donglai asked everyone. Ying Cheng and Ji Chong were champions, ranked first and second. They had to fight first. But he needed to ask Chu Chunxiu too. No problem, said Ji Chong. He had wanted to fight against Ying Cheng for a very long time. They were both champions. It would be the battle of the champions. Chu Chunxiu nodded. He had won against Gili. He was now third. If Ji Chong and Ying Cheng fought first, it was even better for him. At that moment, everybody looked at the two of them. In the whole city, there were only two champions. One controlled chaotic sky Dao, and the other one controlled destructive Dao. Both champions jumped onto the stage. 9 cyan dragon totems appeared behind Ji Chong. Cyan lights glittered about him. He looked like a king. A spectacular map appeared behind Ying Cheng. An image of several countries with mountains and rivers, and their altars to the gods of earth and grain, filling heaven and earth. The sky there looked wild and chaotic. Ji Chong and Ying Cheng moved at the same time. Terrifying explosions starting instantly, as they closed in on one another. Qi swirled chaotically around them. Cracking and shattering explosion sounds filled the air as destructive energies and chaotic sky energies kept colliding. A white vortex appeared between them. The atmosphere became oppressive. If anyone went between them, they'd die instantly. The earth and sky shook violently. Both of them moved faster and faster. Dragons roared, and the map of several countries and their altars to the gods of earth and grain turned into a proper space. The air churning wildly there. Their battle was amazing, and everybody was staring at the two fighters. Finally, in the end, the atmosphere calmed down again. The remaining qi flowed in the air. The battle was finally over. In the end, Ji Chang lost. I lost against you in the end, Ji Chang sighed. Ying Cheng was surrounded by a terrifying qi, which kept rising to the skies. The audience's hearts were pounding. In the end, Ying Cheng smiled at Ji Chang and said, "You're going to rank first soon." When Ji Chang heard Ying Cheng, he wasn't happy at all, he was astonished. But then when he saw Ying Cheng's expression, he smiled and said, "I hope you'll soon become a great emperor." Soon, Ying Cheng sighed. Finally, he was going to become a great emperor. He had been waiting for so long. "When I become a great emperor, we'll fight again." Ji Chang smiled. "I'll wait for you." Ying Cheng nodded. They looked like friends, not like people who had just fought furiously. They both went back to their pillars. Ying Cheng was still the first, Ji Chang the second. Maybe things wouldn't change that much. Chapter 1961. Fighting against the genius of the Snow Clan on the dazzling Golden Imperial ranking list. The order was now as such. Ying Cheng, Ji Chang, Chu Chun Xiu, Dou Zhanseng, Gili, Shi Yinfeng, Xue Shenfeng, Lin Feng, Ying Gu Tian, Wang Zhong. Wang Zhong, Xue Shenfeng, Shi Yinfeng and Ji Chang couldn't rise in the rankings anymore. If someone defeated them, then they could surpass them. And regarding Ying Cheng, he was the first one. He didn't need to ask for his path. He just had to wait. Therefore, those 5 people's positions were already fixed. Chu Chunqiu, Dou Zhanseng, Gili, Lin Feng and Ying Gu Tian could still rise in the rankings. Gili and Ying Gu Tian had already lost battles. If Lin Feng didn't rise, Ying Gu Tian would remain stuck. Only Chu Chunqiu, Dou Zhanseng, and Lin Feng could ask for their path for the time being. Pei Donglai looked at Lin Feng, his eyes twinkling. "You want to ask for your path again?" Lin Feng's clone nodded at Pei Donglai. "Your position doesn't matter anymore. I don't want you to suffer a crushing defeat, so you can fight against Xue Shenfeng," said Pei Donglai calmly. Xue Shenfeng was just above Lin Feng in the rankings, the 6th cultivator. Xue Shenfeng was pissed off, because he had fought against Ji Chang in the first round, and there were many people between him and Ji Chang. But he had chosen to fight against Ji Chang, and now he couldn't rise in the ranking list anymore. Even worse, people who were under him could still challenge him. If he lost again, it would be a real humiliation. Xue Shenfeng looked at Pei Donglai in icy fury. Pei Donglai had just said to Lin Feng that he didn't want him to suffer too much of a crushing defeat. So he was proposing he fight against Xue Shenfeng. That was a humiliation too. He was saying that Xue Shenfeng was the weakest person Lin Feng could fight against. "All right," agreed Lin Feng. His real body still had his eyes closed. Pei Donglai frowned. "If you don't want to fight, just say it. What is that supposed to mean?" "Please wait," said Lin Feng's clone. Xue Shenfeng groaned coldly and demanded, "Will you fight or not?" "Shenfeng, don't be merciful," said someone in the crowd at that moment. It was Xue Fan. Xue Shenfeng's eyes glittered. He had noticed Meng Qing in the crowd, and glanced at her icily. "Wake up," shouted Xue Shenfeng icily. He released cold energies which instantly surrounded Lin Feng's real body. Lin Feng's real body opened his eyes and clenched his fists, emitting crackling sounds. Lin Feng slowly turned around, and looked at Xue Shenfeng icily. Xue Shenfeng didn't bother looking back at Lin Feng. He just headed towards the battle stage while releasing more freezing energy. Lin Feng also walked towards the battle stage, his eyes grim and cold. An ordinary clone couldn't do much. However, Xue Shenfeng was acting recklessly. Lin Feng studied his snowy white face icily. Xue Shenfeng looked arrogant. "Deployment spells are one thing. Strength is another thing," Xue Shenfeng said to Lin Feng indifferently. His eyes looked like they contained whole icy worlds. "Deployment spells are a type of strength. You don't understand deployment spells, so how can you talk about them?" said Lin Feng flippantly, even disdainfully. He even looked amused. He was making fun of Xue Shenfeng. There were many proud and arrogant people in the cultivation world. Maybe every genius was a bit arrogant and proud, but it was also dependent on whom they faced. For example, Those who were at the bottom of the imperial ranking list despised ordinary emperors and were still considered real geniuses. Of course, some people were genuinely proud and arrogant, no matter whom they faced. Lin Feng was proud and arrogant when he faced proud and arrogant people. He was proud because he had started from nothing, and now he was stronger than those people. We'll see how useful your deployment spells are when it comes to real cultivation, sneered Shuai Feng. Then, he waved his hands and snowflakes started falling from the sky. He stretched his hand out and an icy world moved towards Lin Feng, bringing a wave of bone-chilling cold with it. Lin Feng released his godly awareness through his eyes, and his body flickered. Deployment lights started intertwining. He waved his hands and a curtain of lights appeared, containing shattering energies which rose to the skies. He waved his hands, a purple tank appeared. It contained many sorts of cosmic energies, and smashed into and destroyed the ice world. However, Shuai Feng had landed in front of Lin Feng at that moment. He was extremely fast, and didn't want to give Lin Feng time to cast a deployment spell. Shuai Feng didn't believe in deployment spells. For him, cultivation was about punching and striking directly with energies. The purple tank started freezing. The space around Shuai Feng was solidifying as he stared at Lin Feng with his snowy white eyes. Lin Feng felt like he was falling into a world of ice. We work hard to provide these translations and hope you can support our team by reading PMG at the source. Totally insane translation. Calm Lin Feng looked back at him grimly, ignoring the sensation his soul was going to freeze. He knew perfectly well what Shuai Feng wanted to do. He wanted to oppress Lin Feng as fast as possible to prevent him from using a deployment spell. Shuai Feng was convinced that he could oppress Lin Feng quickly with direct strength, since Lin Feng's cultivation level was lower than his. Death lights illuminated the atmosphere and pierced through his brain. Suddenly, Shuai Feng had the feeling millions of swords were moving to impale him. Lin Feng jumped forwards and released some mysterious strength. It wasn't of any known type. Its chi wasn't powerful either. Shuai Feng put his hands in front of him, and razor-sharp snowflakes moved towards Lin Feng again, surrounded him with a layer of ice. However, Lin Feng released demon culpa strength and tore through the ice. At the same time he punched out with his fists, ancient imprints appearing and shooting out. Millions of ancient imprints appeared in front of Shuai Feng. His ice was destroyed by the world of the living imprints, shocking him. He continued moving his hands and more snow appeared, like the onset of an ice age. Golden lights suddenly appeared everywhere, and started evolving rapidly. Lin Feng ran forwards, a world of the living imprint appearing in a rumble of power. Shuai Feng was driven backwards as the golden deployment spell slowly starting taking shape. He pulled a long face. "You're a bit too arrogant," said Lin Feng coldly. Shuai Feng grunted icily as he retreated, and rebutted, "Do you think your opinion matters?" Shuai Feng turned into a shadow in the snow, and the world turned into an ice world. "You're not the only one who understands illusions." Lin Feng smiled icily. He turned into 3 clones, who turned into 9, who turned into 10,000. They jumped onto the deployment spell, and disappeared one after another, before Lin Feng appeared behind Shuai Feng. He waved his hands and millions of death culpa swords filled the air. And at the same time a river made of death energy appeared. His power rapidly wore away Shuai Feng's illusion. Lin Feng's real body used the deployment spell to disappear. It was impossible to see him. There. When Lin Feng saw that Shuai Feng was attacking his clone, he blocked him with chi and ran towards him. A death nihility sword shot towards Shuai Feng. When Shuai Feng saw him, snowy white ice and frost energies emerged from his eyes, and collided with Lin Feng's death lights. The death culpa lights destroyed the illusions. Lin Feng's clones drew closer and closer to Shuai Feng, but all of them froze. A silhouette in white clothes appeared behind Shuai Feng. There were more and more snowflakes on Lin Feng's body, and the ice chi kept penetrating into his body. At the same time, his death strength kept penetrating into Shuai Feng's body, and Shin Feng was slowly turning gray. 2 deployment spells appeared, and Lin Feng's demonic eyes flared. He looked at Shuai Feng in a disdainful way, and released enough world of the living imprints to fill the sky. "Die," said Shuai Feng punching out. An ice world appeared, and the two fighters' energies collided. However, at that moment, the gurgle of ancient waters surged, and the death river drove down on Shui Shenfeng, and he disappeared inside. How is this possible? Shui Shenfeng's face stiffened. Clones could also release strength? He waved his hands and forced his power out, a curtain of ice energy appearing to protect him. However, a terrifying amount of strength was moving towards him. Shui Shenfeng's face stiffened even more. One of Lin Feng's clones was attacking, the one who had released the river made of death energy. On the other side, Lin Feng was casting 2 deployment spells and releasing World of the Living Imprints. The crowd was stunned at this display. Shui Fan and the other strong cultivators of the Snow Clan were all astonished. Chapter 1962. Chu Chunxiu vs. Jichang. Shui Shenfeng was astonished. He continued making hand seals. He released more ice energies into the form of an ice armor. Terrifying ancient imprints kept bombarding the armor, which started cracking. Shui Shenfeng was hammered brutally, and his armor broke apart. The energies pounded his physical body. He coughed up blood, and his face became even paler. A strong wind started blowing as Lin Feng arrived in front of Shui Shenfeng. He looked proud and aloof as he said calmly, "You are ignorant and miserable." Lin Feng went back to the pillars. This time, he jumped onto Shui Shenfeng's pillar, the 7th one. The members of the Snow Clan and Shui Shenfeng's cheeks felt as if they were burning. What a humiliation! Lin Feng had just humiliated the Snow Clan. Pei Donglai looked at Yin Gutian and said, "Lin Feng is now 7th. You have the opportunity to continue now. Do you want to fight?" "Of course," Yin Gutian nodded. Pei Donglai looked at Shui Shenfeng. "Do you need to rest, or do you want to fight now?" Shui Shenfeng's eyes were ice cold as he looked at Yin Gutian. What if he lost 3 times in a row? "Come," said Shui Shenfeng in a low voice. Yin Gutian looked at him in an even colder way with his silver eyes. Yin Gutian jumped onto the battle stage, and they started fighting. Shui Shenfeng looked even more insane than when he was fighting against Lin Feng. It was a big battle. The members of the Yin clan were worried about Yin Gutian. Shui Shenfeng was furious. Finally, Yin Gutian lost as Shui Shenfeng froze him inside solid ice. "Be merciful," shouted Yin Rui loudly when he saw that Shui Shenfeng didn't seem to want to stop. Shui Shenfeng looked at him and grunted coldly. He slapped the ice statue, which flew away helplessly. Yin Rui took a deep breath with relief, but was quickly furious again. Lin Feng had defeated Shui Shenfeng, and Shui Shenfeng had released his anger on Yin Gutian. Now Yin Gutian couldn't rise in the imperial ranking list anymore. "Lin Feng!" Yin Rui glared at Lin Feng in icy hate. After that battle, the 8th, 9th and 10th cultivators were already determined. Shui Shenfeng was 8th, Yin Gutian 9th, and Wang Zhong 10th. Now everybody had a different opinion of Lin Feng. He controlled mysterious and strange ancient imprints, and he was an expert at casting deployment spells. He had even defeated Shui Shenfeng. The 6th cultivator was the Stone Man. He had lost against the Buddhist warrior, so he couldn't rise anymore. But if Lin Feng defeated him, so sure Yin Feng could still fall behind in the rankings. Shui Shenfeng and the Stone Man haven't fought against one another. I wonder if they're similarly strong. But sure Yin Feng fought against Do Sung. Their battle was amazing. He must be much stronger than Shui Shenfeng. Lin Feng can't defeat him. And then those above him, Gili and Do Sung, are even stronger. So Lin Feng can't defeat them either, was the eventual consensus of the audience. Lin Feng couldn't rank better than 7th. Chu Chunxiu and Lin Feng were the 2 cultivators who stood out the most, especially Chu Chunxiu. He was incredibly in the top 3. Of course, Do Sung could still fight against Chu Chunxiu. They had both risen in the ranking list thanks to Gili, as both of them had defeated him. Gili had been defeated by Chu Chunxiu and Do Sung, so he would have the opportunity to fight against Jichang only if Chu Chunxiu and Do Sung both defeated Jichang and made him fall behind. Pei Donglai looked at both Do Sung and Chu Chunxiu. Finally, he looked at Chu Chunxiu and said, Do Zhansung can fight first. If Chu Chunxiu fights against Ji Chong first, against whom could Do Zhansung fight? What do you think, Chu Chunxiu, Do Zhansung? They both nodded. They had no objection. Ji Chong champion against Chu Chunxiu. People's eyes were twinkling eagerly. They couldn't wait to watch this battle. Chu Chunxiu was astonishing. Would he manage to dethrone the second champion? Ji Chong and Chu Chunxiu jumped forwards. They floated in the air above the battle stage and stared at one another, both releasing a terrifying chi. They both looked like ancient kings. We work hard to provide these translations and hope you can support our team by reading PMG at the source. Totally insane translation. A dazzling cyan dragon appeared behind Ji Chong. Chu Chunxiu released intent through his third eye, and his chi surged out. He really looked like a king. Champion University is famous for its great skills and techniques. He looks like someone who could have studied at both universities. His chi, vitality, and determination are all incredible. He looks like a champion and ancient king. Someone blurted out excitedly. A dragon roared. A cyan dragon appeared in Ji Chang's hand and shot towards Chu Chunxiu. However, Chu Chunxiu punched out, shaking earth and sky, and the cyan dragon was immediately destroyed. Ji Chong continued forwards, releasing destructive Dao. It surrounded Chu Chunxiu, and at the same time, Ji Chong also stared at him. He was trying to understand him and destroy his intent. Do you think you can destroy an ancient king's will? Asked Chu Chunxiu. He looked extremely conceited. He released ancient king vitality and intent in domineering waves. A sky-absorbing strength emerged, and his intent started absorbing Ji Chang's Dao intent. He can also absorb Dao determination. The crowd was awed. Even the other cultivators of the top 10 were astonished. It was hard to know who would emerge victorious. Behind Chu Chunxiu, an ancient king appeared, proud and arrogant, and then many other ancient kings also appeared. Chu Chunxiu was suddenly surrounded by many ancient kings. Die! Shouted Chu Chunxiu explosively as he flashed forwards. The ancient kings followed him and threw themselves at Ji Chong. His vitality intent bombarded Ji Chang's soul. Ji Chong shouted furiously. His cyan dragons dashed to the skies. He waved his hands and released even more destructive Dao to bombard the ancient kings. However, at that moment, Chu Chunxiu stretched out his hands, and his terrifying sky-absorbing strength turned into a vortex. He was trying to absorb Ji Chang's destructive Dao. At the same time, Ji Chang's vitality and will were shaking violently, and his muscles kept twitching. What a beast! At that moment, clouds were rolling in the sky. Some old men looked at Chu Chunxiu, appraising his strength. He was a true cultivator. Congratulations. Ing Chung is going to become a great emperor, and Chu Chunxiu is going to surpass him too. Above the clouds, there was a gigantic chessboard. On each of its sides was an old man. One of the old men was talking to the others. He sounded envious. The Celestial Godly University was truly lucky. It's a flourishing period. The competition for the imperial ranking list hasn't been this intense for 100 years at least, said the old man of the Celestial Godly University, smiling happily. It seems that the Chu clan has put all their hopes on Chu Chunxiu. However, I still have doubts. Did the Chu clan really manage to find so many ancient kings' wills to feed Chu Chunxiu? Or did the old dude leave some vestiges? Chu Chunxiu and the old dude are really similar. I wonder if Chu Chunxiu will be like the insane King Chu. Will he go insane because of cultivation, and then get controlled by the Moon Palace? The battle was astonishing and intense. However, the old men sounded calm and detached. Two incredible cultivators had emerged in the history of the Chu clan. One of them was King Chu, who had founded the Chu clan. He had been a terrifying cultivator. Then, the Chu clan had fallen, and another insane cultivator had emerged and brought the Chu clan back to life. Unfortunately, he had died young because of the sky-absorbing ancient holy scriptures. The sky-absorbing ancient holy scriptures were terrifyingly powerful, and everybody wanted to kill the insane cultivator of the Chu clan, because his sky-absorbing skills and techniques were just too powerful. But Chu Chunxiu was more discreet than the insane cultivator of the Chu clan. He rarely drew people's attention. He could have, His elders would have protected him, but remaining discreet was still better. You're tuning in to the Lime's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.